what is called an eternal glance. With just one eye's gaze, countless lives seemed to be dragged into the abyss, falling for a millennium. Boom! The sanctuary exploded, flashing dazzling light, bringing the spirits of all beings back to reality. Countless beings gasped for breath, drenched in sweat, their faces pale as they regained their clarity. Fear filled their eyes. So terrifying. This is the master of the abyss, the horrifying aura of the evil god. Just one eye has the power to distort and pollute all minds. Everyone didn't even have time to think why there was only one eye. The most important thing is, this eye is extremely enraged, gazing downward with surging killing intent. That's right. Anger. Killing intent. That terrifying aura almost overwhelmed everyone. And at the same time, all high-ranking beings of the abyss, whether demons, demon lords, or demon god kings, suddenly had their totems flicker. Black fog gushed out from them, forming a dark scripture, opened uncontrollably. Inside, twisted bloody words manifested from the black fog. 10 minutes. Immediately find and kill the despicable person. He's here, carrying the aura of the holy artifact. The abyss demons were slightly stunned. They were naturally excited upon seeing the emergence of the dark scripture, as it indicated a full-scale attack. But they didn't expect the real command to be to kill the despicable person. The other 3 god lords were also slowly awakening, with strength surging as if preparing to descend, while only the master of the abyss, Lord Evil God, had yet to move, as if something restrained it. Boom! At this moment, the power of the god lords was already projecting, with immense macro light forming continuous light pillars, entirely different from the imagined direct descent upon someone. Over here at the god's palace there were 2 white light pillars, while over at the abyss were 3 black light pillars exclusive to the evil god. In this terror-shrouded world, the powers of the god lords from both the god's palace and the abyss violently collided. Boom! The massive sound attracted the gaze of countless people. The white light pillar was like a symbol of faith, piercing the sky, while the black light pillar was extremely dark, seemingly hiding countless mysteries and horrors. The divine kings watched this scene, their expressions solemn. Even they, the divine kings, understood the vast difference between themselves and this power. Boom! The light pillars of the god's palace towered into the clouds, like 2 giant blades tearing the heavens and earth apart. The center of the light pillar emitting unparalleled holy light, its brilliance warm and bright, as if purifying all evils and darkness. Through this holy light, it reflected the images of 2 god lords. One, the light god who controls light and hope, the other, the life god lord who governs nature and life. Light god's light pillar emitted golden brilliance, like the sunrise, gentle yet dignified, radiating light over every inch of land. In each thread of light, the figure of the light god lord faintly appeared, his hands gently raised, as if calling all followers faith, ready to embrace the forthcoming. His power surged like relentless tides, sweeping in, bringing intense purity, granting countless beings the light of hope. On the other side, the life god's light pillar resembled a gentle stream, pale blue light rippling through the air, like morning dew nurturing all living beings, her glow gentle, flowing with warmth and peace, seemingly transmitting respect and cherishing for life. All beings under the light pillar felt a tranquility of the mind, as if life achieved sublimation at this moment. The life god's power never revealed sharp edges in battle, but gently nurtured everything, offering sanctuary to countless lives. All God's sons, heavenly destiny people on the list. The divine kings spoke deeply. Prepare to enter the light pillar, to obtain the God Lord's power. Without any hesitation, numerous God's sons, including those selected heavenly destiny people, were already prepared. Simultaneously, contrasting sharply with this brightness and warmth, was the abyss's black light pillars. The black light pillar was entirely different, emanating abyssal black light devouring all life and light around. 3 black light pillars emitted a suffocating and bizarre aura, colliding with the other side. Numerous black fog drifted like ghosts, lingering within, extraordinarily striking fear. Through the terrifying phenomena within the light pillar, the identity of the beings could similarly be discerned. The Lord of Chaos's light pillar seemed like an endless abyss, like a vortex, numerous black liquid drawing all beings' wills, interweaving within the black light pillar, forming a twisted sense of eeriness, an indescribable terror. The black chaotic liquid sparkled with many twisted images, reflecting countless devoured souls and twisted bodies. Whenever the black light pillar flickered, countless hopeless whispers were heard, sending chills through the soul. "Come, long been prepared." The Abyss Demon God King sneered, making a gesture, heading toward the chaotic light pillar along with various monsters birthed through nurturing methods and the venerables containing chaotic power in their totems. Next was the Lord of Anxiety's black light pillar. This light pillar emanated an indescribable eerie aura, like a ghost in the darkness, ready to leap out at any moment. The power of the Lord of Anxiety can cause all things to lose their reason and fall into endless panic. The twisting black light column was like a storm, carrying endless chaos and anxiety, as if foretelling the impending catastrophe. All beings trembled under its shadow, sensing the pervasive fear. The final black light column belonged to the Lord of Blood Demon, composed of countless twisted red hues, resembling blood swirling in a vortex. Its strength lay in limitless growth, with blood energy surging out, and it was the simplest and most brutal, needing no selection. Every time the black light column flickered, countless monsters, bearers of the Blood Demon power totem, let out deep growls and crazily charged towards it. The painful howls in the darkness, the agitation, some transformed directly into twisted monsters, unable to bear the explosive expansion. And those who survived were extremely rare, but stepping out from the light column, their eyes longed for blood and slaughter. The bellringer watched this scene, scalp tingling. The power of the abyss was so suffocating, mad, swallowing everything without regard for life, emitting only endless despair and terror. The key point is, the bellringer couldn't help but look at that eye in the sky dome. He didn't understand why the most terrifying master of the abyss, the leader of the four great gods, had yet to manifest their power. Very strange. Just now, the projection of many dark scriptures appeared, also drawing attention, as if the evil god had issued some instruction to everyone. However, they had countermeasures on their side. The Eye of Destiny has given guidance. The voices of the divine kings echoed in the bellringer's mind. At the moment the dark scriptures appeared, the divine kings were already using the Eye of Destiny to counter the dark scriptures, a great power from the master of the present world. What is it? Person of the holy artifact. Protect. The power of the master of the present world. The bellringer fell silent. The guidance given by the Eye of Destiny was often vague and abstract. The current information was somewhat clear, but the order seemed reversed. Shouldn't the power of the master of the present world protect the person of the holy artifact? However, now was not the time to dwell on this, because the abyss had already moved. All those carrying holy artifact fragments retreat immediately. Beware of the abyss's assault. They are searching for and ambushing those carrying holy artifact fragments. Holy artifact fragments were more important than beings imagined because only the true high-ranking understood that this was the power of the master of the present world. The master of the present world, although vanished, could not be found in the sea of old days or the deep prison's coordinates or traces. But only these holy artifacts contained their power, and those who obtained the holy artifact fragments would have various destiny trajectories surrounding them. No matter who the person of the holy artifact was, now the abyss wanted to ambush them, so naturally, they must protect them. And at this moment, all holy artifact fragments also flickered with a dazzling light, as if connecting with the sea of old days. A force of projection was pulling the barely visible threads, linking up on the holy artifact fragments. Of course, this also provided information to the abyss, knowing the whereabouts of the holy artifact fragments. But wanting to kill all the carriers of these holy artifact fragments was not an easy task. Because Tens of thousands of holy artifact fragments. The Abyss Demon God King looked indifferently at the invisible threads. But it doesn't matter. Just kill them. Boom, boom, boom. The black light column emitted endless allure, like the call of the abyss itself, bearing irresistible power, an invisible vortex that attracted the existences of the abyss within. Around this light column, the atmosphere between heaven and earth grew increasingly tense, the air filled with a bloody scent, seemingly forecasting the imminent brutal battle. Outside the light column, over a dozen monsters carrying the power of Abyss God shone with madness and desire in their eyes, along with a strange deepness, and over a dozen venerables were also infected by the dark power, with the red aura rolling over them, as if their bodies were no longer their own but became servants of the Abyss God's will. But that wasn't important. At this moment, they gained supreme power, embodying the force of the endless God, craving battle and conquest. Kill! A twisted patterned venerable uttered a deep roar. The distances between the light columns were not far. Heavenly Destiny people, God's sons had already stepped out, their numbers surprisingly more than imagined. Compared to the devastating bearing power of the black light column, the white light column was milder and bestowed most of its power. A venerable's blade, like lightning, descended from the sky dome, bringing with it resounding darkness, striking at a heavenly Destiny person. Its body twisted rapidly, black blood erupted from the wound with a foul odor. This strike not only released power, but was also an abyssal will's outpouring. The heavenly Destiny person also mobilized their power to the utmost, the weapon in their hand morphing. A magic wand flickering with blue light, acting without hesitation against the venerable. Radiant power, become my shield. White holy light erupted from the heavenly Destiny person's eyes, expanding instantly with their spell, forming a giant light shield to block the venerable's attack head-on. Boom! As they collided, a suffocating power wave burst forth, causing the surrounding air to tremble as if shattered, tearing the ground into deep cracks. Terror unveiled within, depicting the manifestation and confrontation of the god power. Monsters bellowed like thunder, with their roars, black power condensed behind them, forming a blood-red giant hand thousands of meters wide, slamming down on various existences, seemingly shaking the entire world at its strike, devouring all radiance. And the next instant, a curved blade pierced the sky, descended from the void, seemingly able to slice through all darkness, with its spinning blade striving to penetrate with one strike. As blade light and giant hand collided, it wasn't blood that ensued, but gut-wrenching howls. Both sides wielded god powers, clumsily, straining to unleash them in their own way. Not just here. At this moment, heavenly Destiny people and venerables engaged in mutual slaughter. The monster tides and participants from the Chaos Camp also exploded into fierce battles. The entire battlefield was like hell, intertwined with tragic roars and fierce battle cries, forming an epic scene. As time passed, the chaos on the battlefield grew ever more intense. The slaughter between venerables and heavenly Destiny people seemed to stain the entire realm with red, and no one could predict the outcome of this ultimate slaughter. Under the Abyss Power's shroud, although suppressed, presenting a weaker tendency, the result was yet far from reached, as war wasn't such a simple matter, whether it ended in despair or the dawn of hope. The outcome was still unresolved. However, everyone in the god's palace felt a giant stone weighing on their hearts because a massive figure still lay in the sea of old days, yet to descend. Although that eye was closed at this moment for unknown reasons, the terrifying oppressive aura it brought tightened everyone's heartstrings to the extreme. And down in the world, the pigeon god was drenched in sweat. Although having unleashed all divine powers, the terrifying phenomena before him were hardly suppressible now. If it wasn't Subushian, what exactly are you doing? I can't hold on. Such terrifying abyss aura. You say you provoked other abyss gods besides the god of anxiety. I'd believe it. Moreover, the pigeon god looked at the holy artifact fragment hung on Su Qi, also flickering with light. You also carry a holy artifact fragment. Damn, at this time of all times. The booming light of the holy artifact fragment established a connection with the sea of old days, likewise impacting the ritual maintained by the pigeon god. Bad. Can't hold it anymore. Roaring aura already bursting through to be released. And at this moment, the left eye of the sea of old days abruptly reopened. Simultaneously, Su Qi's right eye also slowly opened. As Su Qi opened his eyes, the surrounding abyssal anomalies all disappeared. You! The pigeon god stared blankly at the scene. Succeeded. Although the pigeon god had no idea what Su Buxian was doing or with whom he was battling, the pigeon god couldn't help but instinctively ask. Succeeded. Despite his pale complexion, Su Qi's smile carried a confidence of having everything under control, inexplicably relaxing the pigeon god. Wait, why did I relax? Su Buxian is done, but it doesn't mean the entire war is over. At this moment, the whole situation has plunged into a chaotic slaughter like a relentless bombardment. More than that, boom rumble, a staggering riot erupted across the battlefield. The pigeon god suddenly remembered something. Oh no! Su Buxian, there's an abyssal presence coming to attack soon. Because you possess a holy artifact fragment, and for some reason, the evil god of the abyss wants to assassinate those carrying the holy artifact fragment. Although the rioting anomalies just dissipated promptly, the aura of the holy artifact fragment could not be concealed or stopped. Is that so? Then let's wait. It's not a big problem. Su Qi slightly closed his eyes, not because he was indifferent, but because he had just experienced a fierce battle, successfully shattered the abyss horror complex, and completely attained the spiritual eyes. Severing the final thread connecting the evil god to it, all the riotous power was now part of his own. While Su Qi was currently greatly depleted of spiritual power, weakened after an epic battle, and his face was pale, his condition was indescribably good. The weight that once suppressed 99% of him was now entirely lifted. The most crucial thing now is to unlock all the sequences bound on himself, another layer of restraint, with the vast spiritual energy fully suppressed. Now slightly restored, he could try to open it. Su Qi has a feeling, this time completely integrated with the spiritual eyes, surpassing the breakthrough might exceed imagination. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, the land of extreme evil shook violently. Countless smaller worlds trembled in sync. The god kings raised their heads in astonishment. At the depths of the abyss in the sea of old days, indescribable fury was lurking, though soundless, yet the roar of the evil god reverberated like thunder. Although its form was restricted by unseen shackles, unable to surpass the void's boundary, the wave of wrath shook the entire extremely evil world like a tsunami. The ripples it produced were like lightning tearing the sky, sweeping across, pressing toward the edge of the space. Lord Evil God. Exactly. What happened? Not just the people of the god's palace felt the imminent threat. Even the abyss demons were dumbfounded. They, too, did not understand what had happened. But it seemed Lord Evil God had lost something important, a kind of indescribable fury, as if it had always been hidden, abruptly erupting at this moment. Its power was no longer confined to the sea of old days, but spread to every corner through the invisible dark power, causing the surrounding smaller worlds to tremble fiercely. The entire space seemed distorted, with many turbulence in the void tearing apart, chaos and fear intertwined. The gods of the god's palace felt an unprecedented threat at this moment, as if the surrounding atmosphere was becoming uneasy, seemingly on the brink of a bloody catastrophe. The Chaos Camp without the sanctuary of the god's palace was also unable to conceal the fear and unease rising within their hearts. What's going on? Why did the evil god suddenly get angry? A young divine son looked pale, his voice trembling, his eyes revealing unease and uncontrollable fear. The entire smaller world was shaking. Were it not for the suppression of the world tree and sea of old days, those smaller worlds close by might have already collapsed. And down below the smaller world, the pigeon god came to realization, also perceiving the terrifying waves of the sea of old days and the silhouette of the evil god. Although it tried to maintain composure, its heart was already tumultuous. What exactly happened at this critical time? The pigeon god looked at Su Qi, just as Su Buxian's ending moments earlier completely matched up, making it hard not to link them together. The pigeon god flapped its wings. I got it! It's because of the holy artifact fragment. The holy artifact fragment was highly valued by the god's palace, containing the power of the master of the present world, and the Abyss had just issued an attack command against its bearer, while the holy artifact fragment simultaneously gleamed, connecting thousands of fragments with the sea of old days. If that's the case, everything seems connected. My deduction shouldn't be wrong. The pigeon god slightly stroked its chin. Listening to the pigeon god's self-talk, Su Qi couldn't help but raise a thumb. Your deduction is quite accurate. At this moment, the Abyss's momentum surged, though the evil god's wrath did not cause substantial damage to each world. Yet, it abruptly fueled the Abyss's side, nurturing the fear-feasting tide of monsters with formidable power. Countless lives watching the surging monster tide couldn't help but feel a sense of fear rising. That was an aura breaking free from shackles, an overwhelming intent to kill rushing toward them. This was merely wrath. If it truly descended, what awaited them would be unspeakable destruction and despair. Above the god's palace, the stormy clouds rolled, lightning tore the sky, as if the evil god's fury took shape, sometimes coiling like a giant dragon, sometimes roaring like a fierce beast. Prepare to meet the enemy. Deafening thunderous sounds echoed in the air, causing every life present to feel their hearts stop momentarily, chilled to the bone. The entire space trembled once again, causing everything within the main battlefield to shake. Of course, in other small worlds, wherever there's a glimmer of the holy artifact fragment, the abyssal strength will relentlessly invade. In fact, the main battlefield's pressure suddenly reduced, allowing everyone to breathe a sigh of relief. They are here. A large force from the Abyss is heading towards the small worlds, with a clear purpose: to annihilate anyone carrying the holy artifact fragment. The pigeon god immediately, through the strength of the god's palace, received information from the upper small worlds. We've been targeted as well, with many Abyss monsters headed our way. This small world, no, it shouldn't be called a small world anymore. It's now under the gravitational pull of Origin, continuously merging one world after another. It has already gathered many chaotic forces, along with other abyssal small worlds. Now it seems to be gradually becoming the second battlefield. Su Qi stood up and patted the dust off his body. Let's go, we've rested enough. Pigeon God was slightly taken aback. Where to go? As the center of this world, naturally, we must go out to deal with the abyssal impact. Pigeon God, did you hear me? The situation is completely different from what you faced before. I roughly estimated, from 2 hours ago till now, a total of 3,000 small worlds have been integrated here. The Hustler Palace is no longer the most prominent presence on this land. At least 1,000 divine sons have arrived, countless forces large and small, and besides the swarm of monsters from the Abyss, there are also many powerful divine race venerables. Su Qi yawned. All right. Don't stress out, relax. It's almost our turn now. He walked away. Pigeon God gritted his teeth, saying this guy won't listen. At this moment, after mastering the spiritual eyes, Su Qi not only merged powers, but seemed to have taken a massive leap in his entire life's level. Why say seemed? Because the sequence path hasn't been crossed, this shackle hasn't been unlocked at this moment. But it doesn't matter. With this place becoming the second battlefield, the ceremony centered on the Hustler Palace has crazily expanded and inflated. A massive amount of energy is being absorbed every minute, the traces of dimensions rapidly charging, visible to the naked eye. Su Qi has managed to overcome the biggest difficulty in this war, and the anger of evil God Brother is a testament. Now, it's time to take root and sprout. Boom, boom, boom. The fierce battle on the main battlefield is still continuously ongoing. The projection of strength from the God Master is already exerting unpredictable, terrifying powers on the main battlefield. The divine race sons and heavenly destiny people carry its strength in an unprecedented fierce slaughter, unleashing everything, every time motivating the God Master's strength. It seems as if space is being torn apart, bringing destructive strikes. However, in this battle, not only did they gain support from the God Master's strength, but also those venerables coming from the abyss. Isn't it a bit too underestimating the abyssal strength? Underestimating our great God Master. The abyss venerable's gaze was cold, carrying deep terror. With a mere gesture, the terrifying strength of the abyss swept in like a storm, accompanied by wanton killing intent and insane horror. At the same time, countless astonishing black tides, shimmering with a despairing glow, appeared on the battlefield. These black tides formed the shape of monsters, filled with terror from the endless abyss. Each time these black monsters surged onto the battlefield, countless people could feel the air around them filled with oppression, a reaction of life trembling in despair and fear. Damn it! The faces of the God Kings remained unchanged. Why are they able to control the tides of the sea of old days, and even turn them into their own army? Activate the power stored in the God's palace to protect everyone. Quick! We must break the stalemate. Those bearing the God Master strength. The Divine King said gravely, all are positioned according to the Abyss ceremony, using their respective powers. This isn't a sudden change. It's been planned for a long time. They didn't predict this point not only because it has fused the strengths and powers of Abyss 4 God Masters, but also has an ominous utilization. Logically, this is an impossible situation, but if it's the Abyss, then the taboo within ominous might change, making it reasonable. After all, Abyss and ominous have an important connection. But regardless, now everyone must give it their all, put in full effort. Kill! A roar broke the silence. The divine race sons roared and transformed into streams of light, charging forward, weapons in hand shining with brilliance, tearing apart the black monsters ahead with sacred strength. Despite the countless enemy numbers, the fierce impact persists. But the divine race sons rely on the God Master's strength to still cause effective counterattacks. The protective power from the rear also shone brightly. The God's palace gave its all. No more reservation. Prepare for impact. The heavenly destiny people, along with many forces under the Bellringer's command, swiftly gathered strength to brace for the impending insane impact. Fight with all your might, the Bellringer shouted loudly. Then he rang the colossal Hong Zhong, its light radiant, pouring down like a star river. Hong Zhong's strength and blessing exploded at this moment, as if igniting the emotions of every combat personnel around. With the resounding sound of Hong Zhong, the warriors in the God's palace instantly restored their morale, their strength, and injuries quickly recovered too. Combat capacity also dramatically enhanced. The Bellringer's expression pale. Not only was he commanding with his ability, but also with the blessing of Hong Zhong. Naturally, this blessing counts as the last card. Charge! At this moment, countless people roared, carrying endless strength, charging towards the massive tide. The divine king of the God's palace led the charge, and those who bear God Master strength also exploded. Weapons landed like thunder, instantly repelling the approaching abyssal strength. An earth-shaking war unfolded at this time. Abyss venerables and God's palace warriors clashed in this chaos. The collision of power as splendid as fireworks. This battle is destined to be recorded in history. Regardless of victory or defeat, it is a baptism of blood and fire. As time goes by, the monsters born from the abyssal black tides increase in numbers. They are like the sea of old days. Wherever they go, everything withers, seemingly absorbing numerous traces, even if they're slain. Yet the Abyss God Master's strength continuously supplies, reviving. The God's palace faces immense pressure. Relentless attacks force them to adopt a defensive stance. At this moment, two white columns of light moved slightly. At this moment, it seemed as if the two God's palace's God Masters had to make a move. but at the next moment, dead. Clearly, the words were utterly indistinct, obscure, blurred, yet countless lives shuddered. A wave of terrifying killing intent surged forth like a tide, with that sound echoing throughout the space, booming like thunder. An unprecedented fear arose in many people's hearts, with a portentous feeling. The next moment, above their heads, that sea of old days. Suddenly, a huge rift appeared. Seemingly the evil god's rage tore through reality. The sea of old days could no longer obstruct. At the same time, nearby voices came. Crack! 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 This strange and earth-shaking sound. Down below, in the heated battle, the divine kings had to divert their attention, staring intently above. It's the prison deep within, echoing with cracks. The terror seemed about to be released. Even the two initially prepared to act God's palace's God-masters, God of light and life God Lord, retracted their recently used power. That figure within the sea of old days, though vast, was gravely solemn, gazing at the evil god's figure. Just like in ancient times, the evil god always preferred to enter last, and then devastate everything completely. However, unlike before, we're now without the master of the present world. That one still with no trace. They're coming, right at this moment, from the fault in the sea of old days. A terrifying and powerful strength surged forth, sweeping in like a raging storm, forcefully tearing open a rift. Countless lives felt an unprecedented pressure, as if the entire space was trembling. The rift before their eyes grew larger. The evil god's strength poured in wildly, twisting the surrounding space, as if it would devour everything. Something's not right. This is different from other gods. It's not just a projection beam, but the grand strength of a divine summon. The divine kings at the god's palace felt an unprecedented crisis. They exerted all their energy, unleashing strength, desperately attempting to block the evil god's strength surging from the rift. However, the evil god's intent to kill carried great terror like a raging tide, instantly engulfing their strength, making them feel unprecedented dread. Is this truly the evil god's strength? A divine sun watched as a multitude of lives fell one by one, experiencing unparalleled fear, their pride shattered. They were meant to be fearless, yet now facing the abyss's horror, they felt unprecedented panic. The second battlefield presented quite a different scene. Something's not right. Something's off. A demon god king stood in the second battlefield, leading a massive wave of abyss power below, consuming and destroying the present world before them. After all, the abyss's goal was to destroy everything, not just the god's palace, but also the chaotic camp, various factions, and those ant-like adventurers, all consumed and erased. Originally, it should have been a piece of cake to easily resolve the second battlefield. Since there was not even an equal divine king here, all strength had congregated at the main battlefield. The god's palace itself didn't have enough resources. Now it was on the brink, with no strength to support other places. But that's not how it turned out. At this moment, this world that wasn't very strong, all its people fought more courageously. The abyss's strength was inexplicably suppressed, retreating step by step. The abyss's countless monster tides surged endlessly, yet seemed unable to break through the chaotic ordinary adventurers. They possess protection strength on them. The demon god king stared intently downward. This protection wasn't that of individual points or scattered ancient strength-forming protection, but solid, comparable to the protection of the god's palace. What on earth is going on? Its eyes flickered. The dark scripture was summoned from the totem, already searching for answers. Here felt very off. It instinctively felt a strong sense of unease. Rumble. Constant explosions rang out. The ripples of battle in the second battlefield were still significant, given the presence of numerous demons, venerables carrying strength, plus 3,000 small worlds' lives, believers. The scale of warfare naturally also very vast. In chaotic circumstances, it's all mixed with various forces. There's no divine race's strength protecting everyone. What's really happening? There are over 10,000 holy artifact fragments here, but I can't feel the strength of the master of the present world within them. The Abyss Demon God King stared intently at the scene. It itself was commanded here to handle the holy artifact fragments. As Lord Evil God's commands are above all. The other scattered 90,000 holy artifact fragments naturally had other demons to deal with them, but here was rather concentrated, hence it, as the God King, arrived here first. After all, this world had already merged with 3,000. No. It lifted its head. Is it still expanding? After gathering so many worlds, the gravitational pull did not weaken but grew stronger, gathering more small worlds. From the nominal second battlefield, it turned into a substantial second vast war zone. But what kind of strength could protect everyone? The dark scripture suddenly stopped flipping pages. In the thick evil black fog, guidance appeared. Its eyes darkened, gaze lifted, looking into the distance. At the center of the numerous fused worlds in the original small world, a gleaming light flickered. Palace! The demon God King's gaze pierced through the darkness, cold as ice. I think I've found the answer. His figure shifted, instantly appearing above the palace. With further restrictions lifted in the sea of old days, the space strength was now utilized by them. Just when it crossed space to appear, it slightly paused, because the place it appeared was atop a huge round platform suspended above the palace. The round platform was enormous, judging by its diameter at least 50 kilometers. There a young person sat holding a chair by a table, brewing tea, with several empty cups beside, seemingly waiting for someone to visit. This is, by manipulating the jurisdiction of the palace, through the power change of the world tree, turning it into this shape. Oh, the power of the world tree is what we call points. Who asked you? The Abyss God King focused sharply on this young man speaking to himself. The young man wasn't bothered by its overwhelming intent to kill. Later the Hustlers sect will set it up like this, floating style. Saves space, also can overlap in the same world. Looks like you are the root of all evil. The Abyss God King directly interrupted him, gazing with rushing intent to kill at the young man. It did not underestimate him, even though he seemed only sequence 7. However, his aura, the strength within him, and the almost overflowing traces were by no means simple. Moreover, it can faintly sense an inexplicable fear, a threat so palpable that even it catches a whiff of danger, stirring a strong unease in its heart. Su Qi did not respond, merely smiled and said, "It seems you're my first visitor. Care to sit down for a cup of tea?" Yet the response was the Abyss God King raising a hand to conjure a vast, twisted space, where countless bizarre entities flickered as they took steps forward, while a massive skull formed from black fog was plummeting from the sky dome. "Seems like you don't want tea. How about coffee?" Rumble. Violent fluctuations erupted atop the gigantic circular platform, with a barrage of attacks all targeting Su Qi. More impatient than I am." Su Qi calmly sipped his tea. However, he did not make a move. With a boom sound, the forces of the Abyss God King were suppressed by a giant hand. It was a hand full of distortion, yet it brimmed with strength to counter the Abyss. Indeed, confronting the top existence of the Abyss. And the speaker was the Elder Huang clad in yellow robe, whose released power was evidently stronger than before. Su Qi smiled faintly. "Didn't I help your soul recover? Plus now you've gained strength able to adapt to the yellow robe. Old Huang, you understand too, don't you, the future where we can accomplish all of this?" Old Huang sighed heavily. "So, I've put everything on the line." Boom! Old Huang's and the Abyss God King's forces clashed. To be honest, he's always kept his distance from the Abyss. Even here, the multitude of divine powers from the Abyss are mere projections. The real awakened entity surely possesses far greater strength. But, aside from being forced into a pit, he saw the future in Su Qi, the abundant origin converging in this world. That's the future. The premise being surviving the war against the Abyss. I can only say, you'll all die terribly. The Abyss God King smirked coldly, advancing for another kill. Su Qi watched as Old Huang and the Abyss God King had already started fighting. his gaze withdrawing slightly. He believed Old Huang was sufficient. Now there was no need to intervene, just preparing for everything. After all, he gazed beyond the sky dome to the main battlefield, where nebulae roiled and chaos fractured. The battle between the God's Palace and the Abyss had almost reached the most intense climax, and the massive black fog erupting forth indicated clearly who held the advantage and who was collapsing. Su Qi had no plans to assist, as now on the second battlefield he was already contributing also. The God's Palace should have a retreat plan. After all, this war is the prelude. Though everything is invested, the loser can only preserve power and retreat. Even if losing this war, hopes of resurgence are slim. One must wait until the divine entities are fully revived, then reorganize to respond. But that's not important. The Abyss definitely won't let the God's Palace retreat so easily. Su Qi had prepared. Now the Pigeon God has already gone to the main battlefield. At this moment, the ceremony circle had spread wide, fully capable of absorbing the energy from the main battlefield, no matter how long that side takes to end. Su Qi watched the dimensions mark already charged to 70%. At least, his odds from this point on had risen from minimal to steadily climbing, already exceeding Su Qi's personal grasp limit. Of course, his grasp limit had only a single-digit probability. Exceeding it meant having confidence in Su Qi's view. Naturally, this wasn't disclosed to Old Huang and the Pigeon God. The Pigeon God and Old Huang had asked him if he was confident. Su Qi gave absolute affirmation. At this moment, the Pigeon God was gradually entering the main battlefield. Its superpowers proved more useful than imagined. And crucially, the main battlefield situations were grimmer and more perilous than anticipated. Boom! Evil God power caused the entire battle situation to spiral out of control. Its appearance brought terrifying spiritual oppression and rampant killing intent, suppressing numerous lives from the God's Palace. Even those with sanctuary couldn't overcome the fear born from emotions. The main battlefield's conditions were already dire. Countless lives stood on ground shrouded in fire and smoke, the scorching breath and tense atmosphere interwoven. At this moment, the battle horn echoed in their ears. Yet what followed was the descent of night-like fear. The power of the Abyss infiltrated every soul as an invisible giant beast, the intense pressure causing many forces affiliated with the God's Palace to lose fighting spirit. By now, we can already tell the outcome of the fight. It's time to withdraw. We were merely profit-driven. No need for a fight to the death. There won't be another chance if we don't leave now. At this moment, many forces began directly retreating and preparing to flee. Of course, some hesitant forces remained. Except the evil God's power appeared before them. The air seemed to freeze. That abyss-born aura carried a suffocating chill, like a cold hand clutching every throat. The so-called heavenly pride bred by many forces now showed faces filled with shock and despair, fear transcending life and death, as if consumed by invisible darkness, plunged into a whirlpool of lost control. Lofty battle roars turned frail whispers, faced with the endless abyss, their arrogance like shriveled leaves, wavering in the fierce wind. The bell ringer was also on the battlefield, his gaze slightly heavy, perceiving the despairing emotions of surrounding lives spreading. Even he could not help but feel somewhat suppressed. The invigorating Hong Zhong now seemed faint and lackluster. Strange whispers echoed in his ears, each breath seemingly bearing immense fear. He too was influenced. The bell ringer shook his head, shaking away those whispering influences. He clearly saw the current situation, virtually no chance of a turnabout, yet still was unclear about one thing. That was the Eye of Destiny, which had not given a despairing prediction. Instead, at this precise moment still spoke of hope. And not a faint hope. At this time, many forces had already begun their retreat. This moment saw all momentum collapse. The beings of each major force grew increasingly tense. Some even started stepping backward, fear evident in their flickering eyes. In the bellringer's view, this scene undoubtedly declared a conclusive verdict on the war's direction. Do not panic. The Eye of Destiny's foresight for the future hasn't yet reached its end. The bellringer's voice rang out amidst the chaos. However, faced with the evil god's power, his voice appeared utterly insignificant. A moment of defeat meant continuous spiritual impact. Countless fleeing souls displayed helplessness and fear in their eyes, seemingly incapable of hearing his words. Even the sheltered lives began wavering, fear flooding their hearts like a deluge, almost drowning them. Shadows thickened. The battlefield had become chaotic. The bellringer's grip tightened. He had to find a glimmer of hope within this chaotic battlefield. The god kings were still fighting bloody battles. The core forces of the god's palace were fighting desperately. Even if caught in dire straits, he could not retreat. At this moment, a loud bang shattered the battlefield's tranquility. As though the entire sky was torn in half, sparks flying. The deafening explosion reverberated in every corner, harboring merciless killing intent. The light god and life god had also responded to divine summons, attempting to maintain this final battle situation. However, apart from such unique existences as the evil god, these godlords were the same. The three abyss godlords' figures also roamed the battlefield, akin to death's messengers. The evil god's whispers lingered in ears, as if unseen hands eroding everyone's will. Those once full of self-confidence, heavenly pride, gradually began to question their decisions, fear permeating hearts, despair faintly visible in their eyes. This was an utterly invincible opponent. They've been completely affected. Only demigods and higher beings were not shaken by that twisted spiritual impact. You can't blame them. This is the terror of the evil god. Merely its presence evokes the most profound fears that even Sanctuary cannot easily dispel. The battlefield became increasingly frenzied, impossible to end swiftly. Chaos erupted into a cacophony of angry roars, anguished wails, and maddening screams filling the air. Shadows of abyssal darkness fell from the sky, devouring nearby life, the power of darkness growing ever stronger and eroding their presence. Boom after boom engulfed countless lives. Fear surged like waves, leaving everyone defenseless. More and more forces began to flee, leaving only despair and chaos on the battlefield. The former glory and hope seemed to vanish in an instant, every inch of land stained with blood, the agony resonating in the ears. The bellringer trembled as he watched this scene. Even the two gods were caught in an unreadable twisted state with the three abyss gods. There was no light, no information, no fluctuations, but the battles within were undoubtedly fierce beyond measure. Now, still waiting for that hope, the bellringer watched this scene, gritting his teeth. Truthfully, he, like everyone else, saw no chance of reversal, but the eye of destiny showed. There remains a slight opportunity within the abyss, not just reversal, but even causing significant damage to the abyss. But such an opportunity seemed nowhere to be seen. Suddenly, a fatal unease overcame the bellringer. In the next moment, a fatal killing intent came crashing from the side. Distracted by mental turmoil, he revealed many flaws, seized by a bishop. However, do not be distracted in this place. A voice then rang out. Giant wings roared into existence, blocking the bishop's attack and even swatting him away. The bellringer turned his head, seeing that it was a god helping him block the attack. Moreover, of legendary angel bloodline. Thank you, Elder. Now please assist me. I have something to do. The bellringer looked at the dim Hongzhong. The pigeon god looked calmly at the bellringer. As the one who controls Hongzhong, what do you intend to do? We can't hesitate any longer. Now I will create a passage out for the god's palace, with all my might, to block the terrifying power of the abyss. Determination flashed in the bellringer's eyes. The pigeon god pressed him down directly. Do not risk everything at the cost of your life. Bellringer, I. The pigeon god raised its head, looking at Hongzhong. That is an item granted to you by the master of the present world. The reason the bellringer held such a position, why he could lead and command the god's palace despite only being a demigod, and even intervene with the gods. It's not only because of his outstanding ability. More importantly, he was the last disciple of the master of the present world. This Hongzhong belongs to the master of the present world. The true power within can't be born by you at present. The bell ringer clenched his fists tightly, held down firmly. But, Elder, rest assured, there's no need for Hong Zhong. Everything will be resolved if that fellow fails. Now let me assist the god's palace in retreating. The pigeon god waved a great hand. Superpower erupted mightily. At this moment, the power differed entirely from before, because Su Qi lent some powers from the palace, allowing the pigeon god to exhibit more perfect strength. And at this very moment, rumble, in the main battlefield appeared a new projection, a series of gigantic gates projected. Quickly let everyone step inside. As soon as the pigeon god spoke, the bell ringer immediately executed, recognizing the pigeon god as an elder, though not particularly strong, held high status among the god's palace and gods due to its uniqueness. The bell ringer's voice echoed in everyone's ears. The pigeon god slightly waved its hand, causing a multitude of radiance to cascade downward, granting a moment of respite for all beings. A god of the god's palace? A newly emerged figure? Its power seems peculiar. Why can it erupt with such divine power? Listening to praise feels so soothing. Only here does one feel like a god, a great being above all, beyond direct gaze. At Su Buxian's place, commanded left and right, entirely forgetting oneself as a god. However, now it seems that young man does indeed possess some confidence and ability. After all, the pigeon god gazed towards the distant surge of thick as tidal abyss black fog. Behind it, several figures continue battling the god. If he can pull out means for fighting those figures, he is certainly no ordinary person. At this moment, the bell ringer looked at the plethora of twisted giant gate projections. Is this a space beyond the extremely evil world? If that's the case, I'll once again use the power of Hong Zhong to block afterwards. After all, escaping to the outside doesn't mean being out of danger. The abyss must have prepared a net of annihilation early on, ready to eradicate them at any time. The pigeon god paused. I never said to flee outside. Oh. The bell ringer was startled. Then where to flee? To a small world below. Oh. The bell ringer widened his eyes. Yet the pigeon god softly spoke. Have you not seen it? The strand of hope hinted by the eye of destiny. It's just below. Though smaller in scale, fewer people, and with lesser origin, but at least there's one fellow below. He will have a way, even though I don't know what way it is now, but we've already been forced onto a pirate ship. The bell ringer was somewhat dazed. Wait, who is he? You seem to know him too. The pigeon god paused. His name is Su Buxian, and he asked me to pass on a message to you. The bell ringer's eyes widened. He naturally knew that name, but wasn't that guy staying in the edge of the small world along with people from the Hustlers sect? His voice trembled slightly. What message? He told you not to use the Hong Zhong's trump card to escape, and to save your strength. The pigeon god spoke gently. Next is your time to take the stage. The god's palace was retreating. Many forces were also withdrawing. The abyss naturally wouldn't let them leave so easily, even though the abyss god kings could sense that the giant gate only led to another small world nearby. But the abyss power had already come thundering forward. Only at this moment, the dark scripture suddenly manifested from the totem, with two twisted words written on it. Don't move. The source of these markings, was it Lord Evil God's power? Though the countless beings of the abyss were puzzled, they still stopped all actions, and even the frenzied monster tide ceased. The master of the abyss's command was absolute. They wouldn't and didn't dare to defy it. These few brief moments, however, allowed the god's palace to catch their breath. The divine kings gazed at each other, also covering the retreat of countless lives. The bell ringer watched this scene, muttering, What happened? Why did the abyss's power stop? Is this Su Buxian's method? Who knows? The pigeon god's eyes were also filled with doubt. Even now, it couldn't see through Su Buxian at all, but someone who could enable such divine power must have various other methods. And at this moment, the silhouette of the evil god tore through chaos, an exceptionally terrifying aura, caused the battlefield to once again freeze. The words on the dark scripture were cracking inch by inch. The countless entities of the abyss watched this scene, scalp tingling because they could feel Lord Evil God's extraordinary fury. And seeing the words on the dark scripture, the anger kept escalating. Abyss! Raspy, unavoidable whispers appeared in everyone's ears, as if they came from hell. Prepare to assemble that despicable person. Throw into the abyss. Torment for all eternity. The terrifying killing intent made even the abyss god kings feel a bone-chilling coldness. Meanwhile, on the other side, the pigeon god and the bell ringer were covering the rear, and the evil god's voice didn't conceal anything, echoing in their ears. Despicable person. This name sounds familiar. The pigeon god couldn't help but rub its chin. According to our information, this despicable person was the subject of an early abyss-issued purge order. The forces of the god's palace investigated but found no leads. The bell ringer pondered. Who exactly is this despicable person to make the evil god hold such a grudge, such hatred? Regardless, they had now crossed the twisted giant gate, entering another world. And once here, the bell ringer and many divine kings shuddered slightly. Their eyes amazedly looked around this world. This is the power of the master of the present world. No wonder, the projection of the giant gate, the abyss's enemies cannot enter. Wait a minute. What is that gigantic disc? The bell ringer couldn't help but look up at the huge disc obscuring the sky above the sky dome. It's another means of merging with space. The pigeon god could see the changes within it. One can see its shape, but it is not within. What is not within? That guy is not under the protection of the master of the present world's power. After all the forces from the god's palace and the main battlefield retreated to the second battlefield, the battlefield welcomed a long-lost tranquility. The only ones still fighting are the gods still on the main battlefield. The battle between them seemed to also occur in an independent space. This is the manifestation of the gods' power. And the place where they fiercely battle is none other than the old days, where the whirlwind stirs the surrounding dust, tearing apart the heavy silence, and the lightning-like flashes of blades intersect, as if stars from the sky are falling at this moment, transforming into deadly blades. Even the mere traces of the battle's aftermath have already blocked the invasion of the old days. This is the terrifying power of the gods that surpasses everything. The light god's form is as dazzling as sunlight, with each swing radiating a fierce brilliance, like lightning piercing the darkness, dispelling the surrounding gloom. His sword blade draws dazzling arcs in the air, as if reflecting sunlight, illuminating the black and white that are about to be devoured by the old days. And the Lord of Anxiety who controls curses and fear. Its form is indistinct, sometimes swirling like black fog, sometimes flashing like a ghost, with an unsettling whisper. The voice whispers as if from the depths of hell, striking fear into hearts, as if in an instant, it could drag the soul into endless darkness. Whenever the light gods and the Lord of Anxiety's forces collide with each other, a suffocating gloom emerges, followed by a chilling sense of fear. The light god frowns slightly, and there seemed to be something perceived in his deep eyes. The life god Lord, on the other hand, transformed into an embodiment of life, surrounded by vibrant green glow. With a gentle wave of her hands, it seemed she could awaken every inch of ground corroded by despair. However, when facing the Lord of Blood Demon, this hope seemed infinitesimally small. The Lord of Blood Demon's body was like a shadow of blood, devouring all life force. Every attack of it was like a blade tearing through life, the scent of blood permeating the air. And then there's the Lord of Chaos. It has no form, entirely a black ocean. Black liquid flowed within the old days, seemingly doing nothing, yet doing everything. Did you feel it? I should say you're too slow to notice. Their powers have merged into one, with 2 additional powers on the original basis, maybe even a third. The third one is naturally clear. And look at the traces behind them. tightly linked to the ominous universe. It seems Doomsday has finally been released. Did the master of the present world foresee this day? Who knows, but don't let them escape. The path to Doomsday leading to the present world cannot be so easily opened. The light god's voice seemed, at this moment, his eyes like blazing flames, his determined face full of holy light, and the life god lord's eyes glimmering. The magnificent life power exploded magnificently. Just at this instant, the two gods' powers intertwined, as if a radiance dispersed the darkness, forming an invisible barrier, blocking the attacks of both gods. And the Lord of Chaos's power also surged continuously like tides, seemingly trying to completely devour this light. On the battlefield, the forces of the five gods collided, emitting deafening roars, intertwining light and dark, life and death, tearing out an incredibly majestic and shocking picture. While the gods were still pulling, the main battlefield had already fallen. The once brilliance now shattered, now swallowed by the endless dark tide. The darkness surged like tides, burying everything in ruthless shadows. The deep space sky no longer bright, replaced by a suffocating dark realm, as if even the stars were completely plundered by this terrifying power. The original force of attraction had also been twisted into a vortex like a black hole, devouring all surrounding life. A massive origin was drawn in, falling into the center of the vortex. The vortex continued to descend ever deeper, connecting even to the sea of old days, as if it was not just a vortex but an abyss opening to some kind of passage. The abyss mentioned here is not a noun, but an adjective. The dark pit formed by the vortex, impossible to see what lies inside or where it leads, but the moment it connected with the sea of old days, everything was no longer like the previous main battlefield. There, all light has vanished. Only the endless abyss roars softly, and a chilling wind seems to blow from within, possibly leading to something extraordinary, consuming anyone who steps inside. In this terrifying abyss, all origins and surrounding traces are obliterated under its onslaught, leaving only fear and despair to spread wantonly over this cursed land. Additionally, the creatures of the abyss have not disappeared. One can see countless phantoms wandering in the dark tide, appearing and disappearing, as the abyssal strength has become even stronger than before. This is the bottomless, terrifying abyss. All resistance has been swallowed by the darkness, leaving behind only endless despair and ceaseless struggle. And now, it is rumblingly expanding, with the scattered small worlds around being drawn over by its terrifying gravity, still closing in on the second battlefield. The silhouette of the evil god suddenly appeared in the center of the terrifying vortex of the abyss. As expected, the god's strength is overwhelmingly powerful. No one can bear to carry such a will-born strength, which is why those previous light pillars appeared, allowing a group of people to share and drive the power within. Yet the evil god did not do this. It descended directly with its will, now carrying its strength upon a synthetic body cultivated by the monster tide. This is a monster cultivated through the amalgamation of the four powers of the abyss. Of course, the terrifying strength of the evil god is also tremendously astonishing, as evidenced by its previous overwhelming suppression of the field. Such strength is naturally not something any body can endure. This body continues to collapse under the terrifying strength. But beneath the body, a black shadow stretches into the deep space, connecting with a vast ocean of black tide. Each time the body collapses, forces of soul and fleshly pollution pour over to replenish it. Each second involves tens of thousands of people's flesh, all collected from worlds once slaughtered. And the evil god looks at this disk, and at the person within the disk, with pupils seemingly filled with endless shadows falling. Above the gaze, Su Buxian slightly sips tea, giving a faint smile toward the evil god. Even though separated by an extremely great distance, within the deep space, the gazes of both clash together. Boom! Old Huang suddenly shudders beside him. What's going on? He is unable to see distances so far. Even with spiritual energy, he cannot, as light has been sucked away by that abyss vortex. There is a guest watching us, But sadly what? Sadly, the other party does not plan to come down for tea, Su Chi gently said. And at the next moment, rumble! The entire disc then trembles violently, and old Huang's eyes sink. The power of the abyss has arrived. Not just the disc, but the second battlefield below has likewise erupted. The massive abyss vortex, after swallowing the main battlefield, continues to expand, now rapidly approaching the second battlefield. Simply its proximity carries various particle storms that have penetrated over. If not for the protective strength, it might have already been punched through with billions of holes. It seems the face-to-face meeting I imagined is temporarily not to be, Su Chi lamented. For nothing did I prepare so much. White jade table, green stone stools, clear spring tea and servants. Old Huang looked around, finding no one. Goddamn. Who the hell is the servant? Don't rush. Su Chi lightly tapped, and the disc underwent a change, turning more transparent than before. Old Huang's face also changed, as he now looked at the surroundings of the entire second battlefield. Full of all kinds of twisted passageways of the abyss appeared, descending from that abyss vortex, connecting from all sides to the second battlefield. Arrived so fast? We've been surrounded, and on such a scale as this. Su Chi. This shows they're serious, swift, and decisive, by any means necessary, that is the abyss. You wait here, in case any visitor comes, entertain them for me. I'm going to see the people of the God's Palace. Wait! Old Huang couldn't shout it out as Su Chi immediately vanished on the spot. This guy's mastery of the palace would be enough, but he can also cover the entire second battlefield, and those mystical powers bring even pressure upon him, causing him to helplessly sigh, wondering how much mysterious trump cards this guy has mastered by now. And running so fast, never telling me who the so-called guest actually is. He looked at the cups on the table, the number not even in single digits. Su Chi's figure appeared at the core temple of the God's Palace. As soon as he appeared, countless powerful auras immediately locked onto him. Who? What a bizarre spatial mobility, without any ripple from the ritual. Facing innumerable gazes, Su Chi smiled slightly and raised his hand. Don't shoot. I'm a good person. The people of the God's Palace stared glued to this fellow, but the bell ringer spoke up. He is one of our own, Su Buxian. He looked at Su Chi somewhat complexly. Are all these your handiwork? He was saved by the pigeon god, then retreated all the way, and received a name from the pigeon god, from the initial disbelief, to now still not settled emotions. Just prepared a little more than you, also, how should I put it, to correct you a bit, it's more like half one of you. Su Chi snapped his fingers. From start to finish, the Hustlers sect and the God's Palace are merely in a cooperative relationship. You should still remember our business transaction, right? The bell ringer shuddered slightly, recalling the conversation in that echo chamber. At the time, Su Chi had said he would help them fight against the abyss, but he didn't take it seriously. He merely opened the back door, offering 300 quotas and let old Huang break many schemes of the abyss. In his view, this was so-called assistance against the abyss. But now, the bell ringer glanced at the approaching darkness of the abyss, realizing that the meaning of fighting might not be as simple as he imagined. What exactly? Su Chi interrupted him. It seems your situation is not very good. He looked at the many people present, some of whom had already fainted. The excessive explosive power of divine strength had pushed the original bearers to their limits, exhausting the spiritual energy. Most of the divine summons had ended. Some of the divine sons and God's sons still had the will and strength of the God attached to them, but they were also close to burning out completely. Over on the abyss side, however, it was completely different. The flesh, souls, and massive rituals plundered from countless worlds continued to provide endless strength to myriad abyss entities. Meanwhile, the sanctuary powers of the God's Palace had been completely exhausted in the previous explosion. Now it's entirely depleted. Only the Divine King continues to burn, and two God Masters in deep space are still fighting. Apart from that, there are some ancient strengths that don't count as divine forces. There is still a chance for the god's palace to catch a breath, but no time for respite. To summon again, to reignite strength, it requires recovering everyone's strength and casting the sanctuary upon every individual once more. But now, they can't do it. Su Buxian, isn't it? A group of divine kings looked at him. Where did this strength come from? The power of the master of the present world. Su Qi paused slightly. I thought you all knew. The holy artifact. He waved his hand slightly and a fragment of the holy artifact appeared in his hand. The power contained in the holy artifact fragment. The eyes of the divine kings narrowed. Why can you utilize it? Even though the god's palace had previously studied the holy artifact fragments, they couldn't actively use the contents within. They only knew the holder of the holy artifact fragment could receive the protection of its power, but that was merely the influence of the power seeping out from under the ceiling. Yet this guy before them could directly invoke the power within the holy artifact, and just a single fragment of the holy artifact could directly uphold the sanctuary of the second battlefield. Wait! That's... The divine kings of the god's palace raised their heads to look at the sky dome of sanctuary. A giant white figure seemed to appear due to the holy artifact fragment. This figure held an axe in the left hand, a butcher knife in the right, and a gun on its back. Precisely the form of that previous sculpture. Also the incarnation of a despicable person despised by the evil god on the abyss side. The bell ringer couldn't help but speak at this sight. The eye of destiny's guidance was indeed correct. Su Qi observed this scene without surprise and said with interest, "What guidance?" The bell ringer paused slightly. "I have been searching for that remaining shred of hope, a strand of possibility for a turnaround." Vague guidance pointed towards the holy artifact and the master of the present world. Although the information formed by these two terms seemed somewhat inadequate, now it appears the answer should be revealed. The traces left in the holy artifact are what the master of the present world left behind. Thinking of the previous taboo, it was obliterated entirely. To avoid that ominous illusion of doomsday, it could only be sealed in thousands of holy artifact fragments, and you are the one who activated the holy artifact. The bellringer completed his logically coherent deduction. No. He could now be completely certain. The bellringer raised his head, looking at the white figure with utmost devotion and excitement. That's correct. Only the master of the present world could incite such terrifying emotional swings in the evil god, and being called a despicable person became reasonable. Su Qi smiled. It seems there's no problem, but since I'm the only one who can activate the power of the holy artifact fragments, without Su Qi finishing, the bellringer immediately started giving orders. Find all those carrying the holy artifact fragments. They must not fall into the hands of the abyss. This task wasn't too difficult to accomplish, as most were already gathered at the second battlefield, and when the abyss moved against the carriers of the holy artifact fragments, the god's palace also took action. That's great. Although there were some issues with the process, Su Qi's goal was achieved. Having someone to help collect the holy artifact fragments. Really nice. And at this moment, the forces from all directions of the abyss landed again. Under the sky dome of the second battlefield, the air was filled with a tense and oppressive atmosphere, as if even the light had dimmed, and everything around seemed particularly heavy. Such a quick breakthrough of the defenses. Su Qi raised his head slightly, gazing at the white giant figure, feeling a strange resonance in his heart. The power of the holy artifact fragment churned within him, creating a subtle connection between his consciousness and the holy artifact, as if an invisible force surged in his heart. Although that figure wasn't the master of the present world, but himself, the relationship established between the holy artifact and the sculpture must have something to do with the master of the present world. From the moment he awakened the power of the holy artifact, Su Qi realized, no, not just realized, he had made a transaction without dialogue with the master of the present world. At this moment, the roar of the abyss rang out again, deafeningly loud, as if echoing from endless darkness, with power surging like a tide, attracting creatures from all directions of the abyss. The demons with different forms bathed in a bizarre atmosphere, shimmering like radiant yet gloomy stars in the night sky, intertwining and devouring one another, resembling shadows in the darkness. In the bellringer's eyes, a trace of gravity flashed. Although the power of the master of the present world had given him some hope, the abyss's power seemed to have evolved, becoming more terrifying. And they lacked other means to deal with it beyond the current ravaged power. Moreover, was the number not too excessive? Don't worry, Su Qi smiled slightly. Let the bullets fly for a while. As his voice echoed, the air resonated with a loud rumble. The first wave of abyss demons broke through the clouds, sweeping like a fierce storm. Their forms twisted in the darkness, emanating a heavy aura of evil, resembling a mass of black fog that instantly obscured the previously clear view. They flickered with cold light, lacking any features or emotions, but exuded a palpable, cruel, and insane desire, as if by stepping on this land, they could devour everything. Boom! A massive boom echoed above the battlefield, accompanied by a powerful surge of spiritual energy. Su Qi glanced over. It was the divine kings of the god's palace acting. Sigh. There's no choice. He said don't be hasty, but these divine kings did not listen. The wrist of the divine king flipped, instantly transforming into a giant sword emitting a ghostly blue glow. The sword blade danced at his fingertips, stirring a storm that seemed to ignite the entire battlefield atmosphere. With unmatched power, the giant sword was swung down, instantly cleaving a realm of abyss creatures. Blood gushed like a fountain, staining the surrounding land red. Roars of the abyss continued. The surrounding black tide surged even more frantically. The slain monsters were swiftly consumed by the rear black tide, producing more demon monsters. The tide from the abyss surged again, the roaring from the darkness growing increasingly deafening, as if foreshadowing the impending descent of endless terror. It seems it might not hold for long either. The god's palace now is completely in a semi-crippled state. Aside from the divine king, all other powers are lacking. Actually, even at its peak, the god's palace cannot withstand such an impact. After devouring the traces of the entire main battlefield and opening a bizarre abyss channel, the current abyss has completely changed. The divine kings are merely buying time now, using whatever remaining strength they have to slow down the abyss's overwhelming pace. This allows the god's palace to quickly collect the holy artifact fragments and release the power of the master of the present world. Only then can the current battle situation change. However, on this chaotic battlefield, the power of the divine king exudes terrifying waves, like invisible ocean waves, rolling over layer upon layer, spreading in all directions. With their full firepower and no other demon god king to hinder, they indeed can delay for a while. The sky dome of the entire second battlefield is covered with dark clouds. Lightning occasionally pierces the sky, and the darkness turns into a massive shadow, as if foretelling an ominous fate, permeating with a sense of urgency. The intertwining of heat waves and cold winds mixed with the wandering debris and sharp, twisted sounds. The erosion of the abyss black tide? Su Qi naturally understood that the black tide had the ability to devour traces, and each bit of trace it devoured made the whirlpool leading to the sea of old days larger, and the strength of the abyss stronger. And most importantly, still standing above in deep space, before the towering abyss black darkness whirlpool, the evil god, for some reason, did not move, but the aura on its body, the surging black tide, kept twisting, constantly changing. Boom, boom, boom. Above the vast deep space, the abyss black darkness whirlpool was like a bottomless abyss, devouring all surrounding light and color, seemingly the absolute darkness existing in the universe. At the edge of the whirlpool, eerie light spots flicker sometimes. Those are countless souls already devoured and desperate cries, being erased in the dark whirlpool. And the evil god stands in it, its figure gradually enlarging in an instant, like an indescribable mountain, covering the sky, its aura surging like ocean waves, yet with subtle changes that are hard to grasp. Although it hasn't moved an inch, the surrounding space has undergone intense fluctuations due to its presence, as if some inexplicable mysterious power is arriving. What exactly is the evil god doing? The bell ringer couldn't help but speak, his expression extremely grave. The form of the evil god is shrouded in twisted black fog, occasionally revealing outlines that appear exceptionally ferocious, as if every detail tears at the edge of the present world. The distorted fluctuations are like stormy waves in the sea, sometimes calm as a mirror, and other times stirring up violent whirlpools, carrying the stench of the abyss and boundless despair. Behind it, countless vague phantoms appear in the void. These are demons crawling out from the depths of the abyss, bowing to it obediently, as if waiting for the command from their master, completely accumulating some kind of terrifying power. Doomsday. Su Qi gently uttered these two words. The evil god is different from other gods, not only called the Master of the Abyss, but while other gods are locked deep in the old days, it was instead only sealed into the abyss. Its will remains in the world, not falling into slumber. The consciousness of the evil god wanders in the dark abyss, amidst the powerful strength and the unnameable waves of terror. Yet it grows increasingly calm and silent, seeming to wait for some unpredictable moment. In this silence, time seems to stagnate. Even the whirlpool's turbulence becomes slow and heavy. The end is near. This consciousness is like a whisper lurking deep within the abyss, quietly and firmly eroding the present world. The dark whirlpool rotates within, bringing waves of suffocating terror, as if hinting at some irreversible fate approaching. However, at this moment, the evil god melds into this eerie fluctuation, as if returning home. On the other side, the edge of the second battlefield, the power of the abyss breaks through the defenses like a countercurrent. The divine king's power cannot kill it all. Raging winds howl, and the various ancient power-bearers in the god's palace who can still fight are completely unable to resist. They can't withstand it now. The bell-ringer looked upon this scene, then raised his head to look at his Hongzhong. Su Qi's voice slowly rang out. Stop obsessing over your Hongzhong. Have you forgotten something? The second battlefield, although chaotic, don't forget that this is where the most power resides. The bell-ringer paused slightly. He understood what Su Qi meant. Numerous palace groups and still many adventurers, divine sons of the Chaos Camp, god sons and numerous forces, all are on the second battlefield. The god's palace cannot command those beings not belonging to the camp. Furthermore, it's too chaotic. Not to mention small groups, even each adventurer is an independent individual in battle. Wrong. Su Qi snapped his fingers. As long as there are sufficient benefits in sanctuary, no matter how chaotic, a main force can be formed, standing on the same camp. And in the next moment, the radiance of the Hustler Palace's sanctuary descended heavily. Others may lack, but he has plenty of points. The upgrade of the Hustler Palace is entirely meaningful. Point production reaches tens of millions per second, plus his personal is about millions per second. These points are essentially the strength of the World Tree. After planting the old World Tree seed in the Hustler Palace, it seems as the points increase, a little by little vitality awakens from within it. With such quantities, Su Qi naturally can provide sanctuary for everyone. Of course, it was only for a period of time. The abyss's trend of attack was extremely outrageous. From that abyss vortex, it seemed to release an incredible strength, causing all the forests of the abyss camp to transform in some way. Most importantly, the previous monster tide originally only produced some ordinary monsters. Even killing them wouldn't be so troublesome. But now it's completely different, as if armies are being continuously produced. Boom, boom, boom. Intense battle fluctuations unfolded simultaneously. A tidal wave of people, a vast number of adventurers, many times the number of the god's palace, started roaring and killing in all directions. Su Qi not only gave everyone sanctuary but also did one thing, which was providing benefits they couldn't refuse. That is the origin. The origin of the main battlefield had already been devoured by the abyss during its blooming process, and the origin of the second battlefield also bloomed, but no origin rain fell. Instead, it was absorbed by the ritual established by Su Qi in the Hustler Palace. A colossal origin, vast as a nebula. In theory, its explosive bloom was because gravity could no longer hold the increasingly unstable origin. After all, the origin was constantly evolving. At this moment, every strand of origin was like a planet that had vanished through countless ages, on the verge of exploding. So there was almost no constraint that could forcibly retain such a colossal flow of origin. But neither the group of Dimension Masters nor Su Chi himself had anticipated that the ritual was far more abnormal than imagined. Its range of expansion was immense, and the devouring strength it produced surpassed that gravity. This also provided Su Chi with a more astounding binding force to collect the origin. So now the origin is temporarily under his control. The purpose of the origin is never for the present but for the future. So, as everyone received sanctuary, a holographic projection and information of Starfire appeared before them, indicating that as long as they killed 10 monsters, they could obtain a strand of origin. Such conditions were enough to stir the frenzy of every adventurer. The numerous forces of the chaotic camp, divine sons, and even the god's son of the divine race. Don't underestimate people who fight desperately for their own benefit. They may not be any less crazy than the abyss when it truly comes time to gain benefits. Alright, at least it can hold for a while. And the charging is already completed, the traces of the dimension have also been activated, but it seems some time is still needed to reach here. Besides, the first guest seems to have arrived. Su Chi's figure disappeared from where he stood. On the disk, a terrifying force conglomeration was forming above. This one wasn't any of the abysses. God, its body was enveloped by dazzling holy light, like a radiant divine statue. Even though the body was full of cracks and imperfections, it couldn't hide the awe-inspiring majesty it exuded. That majesty was like a towering peak, grand and unapproachable, making everything around appear small and powerless. And what caught one's more attention was its wings looming in the background, every feather shimmering with an amazing splendor, seemingly woven from the light of dawn and fragments of stars. Those feathers seemed like flowing light and shadow, as if narrating endless ancient traces. Every slight tremor echoed like a heavenly echo, stirring the surrounding air, bringing a mysterious and divine breath. At this moment, the light of the heavens and earth seemed to converge here, causing one to involuntarily hold their breath, feeling that greatness and solemnity surpassing the material world. The first guest. At this time, old Huang stood here, eyes wide in shock. He was originally arranged here by Su Chi to serve tea and water, feeling quite aggrieved, and although he was told there would be guests, no one had come. When asked who was expected, he only got a don't know. Unexpectedly, the first to appear was the Lord of the Angel Divine Race. Why? The former Lord of the Angel Divine Race was supposed to have fallen, completely disappeared in the vast old days. The subsequent Angel Divine Race evolved into a cruel race where class supremacy and bloodline supremacy ruled, and now they have joined the abyss. How could such an ancient existence appear here? Although it's just a projection, it hasn't regained consciousness, but it still shocked old Huang greatly. Why was such an existence resurrected? Why are there traces still existing in the world? And equally shocked was the pigeon god resting on Su Chi's shoulder, which he also brought along. It now stood straight, body stiff, mouth quivering, completely dumbfounded. Brother Huang, serve tea to the guest. Su Chi's voice softly came. Old Huang let out a breath, calmed his mind, and walked over. Then asked Su Chi through the Starfire chip, "What's going on? How did this projection of the once fallen Lord of Angels appear here?" Su Chi smiled at old Huang, giving a thumbs up. "You figured that out, as expected of Brother Huang." Old Huang's actual identity was far more mysterious than he showed. Only now with Su Chi's different perspective, he had gathered quite a bit of information about old Huang's identity. However, that wasn't important at the moment. The second guest has also arrived. Su Chi felt the echo of power within his body. A stronger oppressive aura appeared in the air. The next moment, beside the round table of the disk, a figure slowly coalesced. This one had no entity. Everywhere it was yellow and distorted. Even the weather inside the entire disk changed. The direction where it was seemed to turn into a cursed dusk. The light twisted and deformed, emanating an unsettling atmosphere. The whole space seemed covered in a thick shadow, deep and blurry, difficult to behold. Unlike the endless holy light in the direction of the angel, it was as if a separated space. Here, the air was permeated with a peculiar aura, interwoven with decay and fantasy, making it almost suffocating. Old Huang was petrified. The moment the other party appeared, he recognized its identity. The yellow-robed master, the true owner of the yellow robe he had stolen. Why had such an existence also appeared here? It shouldn't have. Old Huang didn't dare raise his head, for whenever his gaze neared, it seemed he'd become fluid, blurred into an elusive mirage, twisted in. The projection of the yellow-robed master did not appear in the strange space as a physical entity. It couldn't be truly captured by the human eye and shape. Its existence was like a ghostly silhouette, flickering with bizarre light, making the surrounding dark yellow even more intense. Currently, the aura and strength of the yellow-robed master seemed capable of penetrating time and space, eroding here, making one shiver. But like the Lord of Angels, it hadn't regained self-awareness. Brother Huang, please serve tea to the second guest. Serve your damn tea. The Lord of Angels was one thing, but why invite this deity of fright as well? And it had also once fallen, completely vanished. He no longer cared how Su Qi managed it, he just wanted to escape. Knowing why he knew it was because he had robbed the yellow-robed master's tomb. To get the yellow robe. Nonetheless, Old Huang still moved. As the other side lacked will, that was somewhat fortunate. In the face of this force, Old Huang's heart raced. Sweat beaded on his forehead. As if oppressed by the invisible might, breathing was becoming difficult. The surrounding space seemed to continually shift in shape, the dark yellow light in his sight weaving into abnormal patterns, instilling deep anxiety. This was uncontrollable. Initially in that tomb, he hadn't seen the yellow-robed master, but falling is something he could confirm. At this moment, though, Brother Huang, wait. Su Qi's voice was exceptionally clear within this fear, startling Old Huang, almost causing him to spill the tea. What? It might prefer coffee. Change the pot. Oh. Old Huang nearly shouted in anger. However, he did scream, just within the starfire chip. You damn troublemaker, are you bored? Su Qi just chuckled. Catering to each guest's preference is quite important. Old Huang was inwardly cursing, wanting to swear but unable to do so. Isn't this tea just ordinary tea? And that coffee, what a load of crap about it being top grade. Isn't it just instant coffee? What bullshit to cater. He couldn't feel any extraordinary strength from it. However, there were many things he couldn't see through, especially those related to Su Buxian. Old Huang finally sighed, took a few steps which turned into one, and started brewing coffee. There were two reasons for his compromise. One was because this guy was the sect hierarch, and as a priest, even if the other party acted recklessly, he still had to follow instructions. The second was, the color of the yellow-robed master had deepened from just now, seemingly becoming more riotous after appearing. Just now the Lord of Angels also showed this trend, but it stopped after he served the tea. Could it be that what Su Buxian said is true? Su Qi didn't pay attention to Old Huang's various complex emotions and thoughts. He smiled at the two projections. Consider it an unexpected delight, or perhaps, as expected? The explosive development of the ritual, although it started slowly at first, once it gained momentum, it couldn't be stopped. Coupled with the massive energy fluctuations in this vast area, it was more astonishing than imagined. So, in less time than estimated, the previously set goals were achieved. Not only was the dimension trace charged completely, but many other matters were also completed with energy replenishment. More importantly, every subsequent moment allowed Su Qi to continue expanding. Just like in front of him, the Lord of Angels and the yellow-robed master. They were only projections with no will, yet they carried some self-programming. Despite this, the strength was real, because they were also summoned through traces, relying on the traces on the angel feather and yellow robe to charge, successfully finding the coordinates, projecting the remaining strength over. Of course, this is no less difficult than charging the traces of the Dimension Master, as there are few traces, and like a searchlight probing the depths of the old days, it requires a huge investment. Success is not guaranteed. Su Qi still had quite a few rare items with ancient traces, but they didn't succeed. Once the energy invested reached the preset value, Su Qi just gave up, as further investment was not worth it. Additionally, the third guest should be arriving soon. What Su Qi focused on seeking is naturally related to his own sequence. Apart from the Blood Demon series and Spiritual Eyes series, the main traces are outside and inside the Abyss Vortex in the distance. The Angel series, Ancient God series, and Immortal Way sequence can all be done this way. The search success rate is very low, and the energy swallowed by the ritual is to increase the search power. Su Qi casts a wide net. After all, the God's Palace has already retreated, and the top strength of the Abyss has also entered a temporary cooldown. Otherwise, another terrifying storm like before would have already been stirred up, with numerous demon god kings rushing into this place. Yet, the Abyss still has new strength blessings, as the ghostly figure in the Abyss Vortex was suddenly brought out by the evil god, making it hard to predict what will happen next. And Su Qi at this moment is also creating a second battlefield led by the Hustlers sect, naturally needing more strength. And the next moment, projection slowly appeared. At the moment of appearance, old Huang shivered all over. Wait, what is this? This projection seemed to carry endless evil, almost on par with the Abyss. Serve the guests some snacks quickly. Su Qi's expression slightly paused, eyes narrowing. This one seems different. No, you go. Su Buxian, you go serve. Old Huang's voice trembled slightly. This presence, even not looking at it, he seemed to feel a chill seeping in, the fear in his heart unconsciously amplifying, his body trembling involuntarily. I cannot move, Su Qi calmly said. Why? Old Huang's eyes widened like copper bells. You've seen these projections, their identities are not simple, right? Almost everyone is a true taboo, so showing up here will cause terrifying ominousness. The pigeon god was stunned at the side. But why hasn't it happened? It had seen the ominousness erupt from Su Qi's body, very terrifying, only by relying on some starfire-like thing to hide itself, making the ominous engulfment lose its target. Su Qi snapped his fingers lightly. Naturally, it's because of this round table. This table? I can't see anything special. Su Qi smiled slightly, not answering immediately, but instead extending his hand to hold the chair, standing up gently. And the next moment, boom! The entire sky dome on the disk suddenly darkened. Countless shadows seemingly formed into strange giant hands in an instant, wanting to tear everything apart. The pigeon god widened its eyes watching this scene, while old Huang trembled all over. Damn it! How could it be such a colossal ominousness? This terrifying aura he would never forget in his lifetime. Sit tight, my sect hierarch. I'll go serve the snacks now. Old Huang forcibly pressed Su Qi onto the seat. Su Qi snapped his fingers. Thanks, Brother Huang. So this table can suppress ominousness? The pigeon god was somewhat shocked, not yet coming back to its senses. Of course, and not just that, after all. This is a table where many big figures hold meetings. Su Qi smiled mysteriously. He actually brought out the World Tree Table used for meetings by the Dimension Master. Of course, this is part of the vast traces. After completing energy charging through the ritual, it was successfully constructed. This is also the reason why it can host these terrifying projections. After all, this place was used by the Dimension Master before. Who exactly is this? Although Lao Huang promised to pay some attention, the closer he got, the more his rationality was gradually devoured by fear. He tried to steady his steps, but was trembling, limping forward with difficulty. How should I say it? Su Qi paused. I don't know either. Oh. He indeed did not know who the other party was. After all, there were only two words. Ancient God. This is a code name referring to ancient gods, which is quite broad. Who knows which one it points to? However, Su Qi looked toward the opposite side. At the center of the projection, there was almost no specific shape, yet it could not be ignored. It was a core seemingly surrounded by countless twisted tentacles, emitting whispers that made souls tremble, as if summoning fear and despair from the world. Those whispers were sometimes clear, sometimes blurry, carrying an asphyxiating temptation in between, as if trying to incite the darkest desires in one's heart. Doesn't seem like a good person, Su Qi softly mumbled to himself. Lao Huang quickly delivered the snacks and retreated swiftly after. And at this moment, the fluctuation from the earlier projection actually calmed down a bit. What's the principle behind this? Su Qi gently spoke. It's a power without self-will. It maintains a kind of instinct of its original self, so catering to its preferences is quite important as it can soothe these instincts in some aspects. Of course, those so-called tea, coffee, and snacks are merely appearances. In fact, they are appeased through spiritual power transformation. And only Lao Huang can do these things because he escaped from the ominous universe himself. Oh! The shadow of the abyss is spreading terrifyingly, affecting the entire land of extreme evil. Deep space flows with twisted and bizarre colors like a torn curtain, roaring angrily in the night like a storm, ripping apart countless twisted abnormalities and existences. The shadow acts like a gigantic net, enveloping the land of extreme evil in endless terror, where everything trembles and struggles. The stars, once flickering, have now become distorted, wrapped in the shadow that opens. They can only emit silent lamentations. The base around the world tree seems to be eroded by the abyss pollution, with black liquid oozing out from the cracks like corrosive, poisonous snakes, giving rise to twisted and grim monsters. The power of the divine king at the god's palace is gradually retreating, with the remaining divine power now almost exhausted. How's the collection of the holy artifact fragments? 80% complete. Hurry! There's not much time left. At this moment, even those divine kings who haven't exhausted all their divine power can feel, in this land of extreme evil. It's as if even the air has become heavy, with the shadow of the abyss constantly devouring every trace. Demons and monsters lurking from the abyss begin to stir under the shadow's guidance. Their bodies grow increasingly dreadful due to the abyss power, with twisted shapes and eyes shining with endless madness and greed, as if waiting for the moment to tear apart this land. Meanwhile, amidst the abyss vortex, the evil god is converging flesh, and its form begins to change. In the shadow, the evil god's sheep head slowly emerges, its presence akin to boundless darkness, exuding an oppressive aura that stifles. At this moment, it's constantly absorbing surrounding resentment and despair, transforming these into the source of its power. Flesh is continuously torn apart and reassembled. The body of the evil god gradually forms amidst the twists, outlining a vague silhouette, with each reassembly filling the air with a suffocating air. And within the abyss vortex, more abnormal and terrifying sounds are summoned, as if beckoning those forgotten existences. The sound is deep and long, like whispers from another dimension, carrying endless temptation and fear. The edges of the vortex continuously twist, with some vague shadows beginning to emerge, as if countless eyes are peering into this world, observing in the dark, emitting low and piercing roars, seemingly excited for an impending dark baptism abominable ritual. Doomsday, huh? Amidst the vast land, a silhouette is discreetly watching this scene from an unnoticed corner, quietly muttering. Those things once deleted are ultimately never cleanly erased. At the center of the vortex, forms almost invisible persistently gathering, seem like an indescribable entity, with abnormal shapes slowly emerging from the vortex as the sounds grow clearer. This silhouette gently places the hat back on his head. No matter what, the deal made with that kid. No, it should be called a gamble. Now it seems he won. Since that's the case, he's the one to whom that thing should be given. Boom, boom, boom. The defense line of the second battlefield is continually breached. Yet there are still those fighting valiantly, growing braver with every battle. Because they discovered, after slaying enough abyss power, the origin really does descend. Even now, despite retreating and being suppressed, with the lure of sanctuary and origin, everyone fights even more fiercely. Injuries? Sanctuary can heal spiritual energy. The scattered light can recover it. On the battlefield, there's even command. Though Starfire provides various battlefield information, analyzing, deducing, and exposing the weaknesses of all the monsters in combat. Of course, Simultaneously, there exists an entity invisible and unknown to anyone, quietly recording every trace. The disk and the second battlefield do not communicate, hence the frantic disturbances below cannot affect the above. Apart from the World Tree Conference table, this disk also came from there, part of which falls under the Hustler Palace's jurisdiction, while another part was used as a plate by the Lord of all Dimensions for snacks back then. In other words, this place can also communicate with the ominous universe, which is where the Abyss Vortex currently connects to. Brother Evil God seems to be ready for a big move. Su Qi was not surprised. Ever since obtaining the Evil God's eyeball, he had stepped from the shadows into the spotlight. He gained some information about the Evil God and Abyss from the Abyss Complex. And naturally, the Evil God also acquired his information, observing all the powers he erupted within. After acquiring the eyeball, besides endless wrath and murderous intent, the Evil God discovered some things. Thus, among options to kill him and other choices, it opted for the higher priority one, initiating Doomsday. It's now crafting its physical form, its true form, to descend with its real power and terrifying stance. Now, the Abyss seems merely to be attempting harmless attacks, allowing the God's Palace to breathe a sigh of relief, having greater hope in eventually completing the collection of all holy artifact fragments to summon the master of the present world's power. But, in reality, within that Abyss Vortex, all powers are explosively expanding, and when the Evil God truly descends, what the God's Palace will find as its hoped-for salvation will merely be despair. The only one seeing through this is Su Qi. He didn't waste any strength wiping out the Abyss Black Tide invading the second battlefield. Now both sides are in military escalation. The Evil God doesn't know how deep the water is on Su Buxian's side, but it saw the master of the present world's power, this former rival enough for it to open that terrifying eye to observe. And Su Qi does not know the true form of Doomsday within the Abyss Vortex, nor the authentic image of the Terminator in the old days Abyss. But it doesn't matter. Su Qi observed the fourth projection emerging on the round table. This silhouette seems not as powerful compared with others, without extraordinary aura or dreadful fluctuations, yet its appearance on the round table's chair signifies this existence is on par with other projections. Su Qi smiled. "Oh, my friend. We're finally meeting again." Sitting among the round table, now besides Su Buxian, there are 4 people. One is the Lord of Angels, whose whole body exudes holy light, illuminating his side of the space like a round cross-section. Another is the yellow-robed master, now bathed in a twisted dusk, all shrouded in an unseeable gloom. The ancient god's terrifying vision spreads behind him, rolling and occupying one end of the disk. Finally, there's the most ordinary one of all. He has black hair, lifeless eyes, wears a black jacket, with a ferocious scar on his face, and traces of bullets hanging on his body. Although he lacks consciousness, he exudes a certain unfathomable sense of weariness. This is the black-haired youth Su Qi encountered before in that dueling world. The other person gave him a revolver comparable to a divine artifact, along with a box of cigarettes. Those cigarettes were the items carrying the other person's mark and coordinates. Naturally, Su Qi would attempt to invest energy, as the other's identity was linked to the origins of some past era, and the energy invested even surpassed others, making the search more challenging. However, he didn't expect to find the other's traces and project part of the strength out. Like other projections, it had no self-awareness. This part was merely remnants of strength's marks, separate from consciousness. He doesn't seem very dangerous. This was someone old Huang didn't recognize, and compared to other presences, it was this one that made him sigh with relief the most. Really? Su Qi paused, looking at the aura on the other. That might not be the case. Unknowingly, the black-haired youth's aura quietly grew stronger. Although there was nothing else within his body, behind him, countless terrifying entities began to emerge. "Are those all the various visions he's experienced?" murmured the pigeon god. Behind the black-haired youth, the outlines of the visions became increasingly clear, with scenes of terror surging like tides, wantonly corroding the surrounding space. The visions all carried his past marks, as the pigeon god mentioned, They were all worlds he had experienced, intertwining and influencing each other, causing endless panic and oppression. And soon, the disk began to transform, revealing a narrow street, with the surrounding buildings having fallen into disrepair, and the gray sky shrouded in gloom. Scattered on the street lay several corpses, seemingly destroyed by some invisible force, their twisted expressions like silent screams, conveying endless pain. The air was filled with a stench of decay, a suffocating sense of terror continuously rising, as if it could swallow one whole at any moment. A monster covered in various burns, wearing a tall hat, appeared among them like a nightmarish ghost, emerging. Then, the street twisted and distorted, revealing a gloomy underground facility, with pipes riddled with rust all over the walls, and faint light flickering in the shadows at the corners. Here was a place forgotten by people, where everything seemed abandoned by time. The ground was splattered with blood, scattered with several twisted corpses, whose faces were contorted beyond recognition, chilling to the bone. Suddenly, a deep whimpering sound came from within, like whispers from hell, lurking in every corner, echoing incessantly. This must be a vision, right? Why do I feel the air getting colder? Old Huang's alertness rang out. The air was permeated with a suffocating despair, as though the cold air flowing within was sweeping through. Only the whispers constantly reminded people that this was once the world of the living, now turned into a cage of death, as if something was about to surge out from it. Before Old Huang could confirm, then another scene covered it. It was a dead city, where once bustling streets now lay empty. The windows of the buildings looked like cold eyes, watching over the desolation, and the breeze kicked up dust from the ground as if mourning for this lost land. Occasionally, a few crows flew by, their cries piercing, like mocking the tragedy of these ruins. At the center of the city stood a gigantic statue, its expression twisted and ferocious, as if cursing all life. The surrounding streetlights flickered weakly, like a dying struggle, on the brink of extinguishing at any moment. At this moment, the shadows around began to gather, as if numerous ghosts were wandering within, their faces unclear, only their hollow eyes emitting a ghostly blue light, filled with endless sadness and death. Seeing this, Old Huang's pupils contracted. Wait, I see it. This is Main God Daimon. He suddenly realized something, abruptly covering his own mouth. But it was already too late. A terrifying ominous seemed to sense the taboo, causing the space to reasonlessly turn dark, losing color, with countless black and white rushing towards him. And as the outline of these visions became clearer, the terror continuously spread. Those once blurry images began to emerge from the visions, grotesque creatures gradually becoming visible, with distorted bodies coated in viscous fluids, seemingly crawling terrifying monsters, their every movement appearing slow yet deliberate. And faintly visible, that nightmare-like figure walked with his head lowered, long slender fingers traced across the ground, leaving deep marks, as though tearing at the reality of this space. Its face was invisible to anyone, only a black blurred mask, with an eerie sheen flowing over it, silently mocking Old Huang himself. As the anomalies deepened, those creatures moved faster and faster, as if racing against time, eager to pounce further away. The air was suffused with a suffocating aura, constantly feeling their approach. That terrifying feeling surged towards this real world like a tide, as if in the next second, it would be devoured by these entities crawling out of the anomalies. Damn! Old Huang panicked. He had already offered the snacks, intending to appease the seemingly ordinary black-haired youth, with various terrifying anomalies displayed behind him. The words he uttered couldn't possibly be the cause of such ominous terror. The true reason was these terrifying anomalies, which were becoming increasingly vivid before Old Huang's eyes, as if stepping out from the black abyss, facing everything in front. Some sort of whisper echoed incessantly at the ear, seemingly carrying endless doomsday echoes. There were ghostly streets, underground institutions teeming with countless zombies, and cities of death sprouting unexpected dangers. Deep in Old Huang's eyes revealed an unspeakable fear. This was definitely the main god space, The cause of all the ominous outbursts was these anomalies. But unfortunately, the snacks were useless. They didn't stop the slightest anomaly behind him. Su Buxian, old Huang shouted loudly. What do we do? Instinctively, he began to seek help from Su Qi, as if subconsciously thinking that that guy would surely have a solution. Snap! It was like the sound of a lighter, and old Huang whipped his head around, eyes wide open. At a time like this, you still have the leisure to smoke. At this moment, Su Qi used a lighter to light a cigarette and threw it to old Huang. It's not for me, hurry and light it for my elder brother. Old Huang, without any hesitation, he did as Su Qi said immediately. Say what you will. Say what you will. As soon as the cigarette was lit, the anomalies behind the other party visibly began to retreat rapidly, suppressed by the dense smoke. However, the surrounding ominousness, although it stopped expanding and spreading, the colors devoured were still all restored from black and white. Why is this? The pigeon god watched, heart pounding. Doomsday. Old Huang spat out these words, his eyes shining with cautious fear. Su Buxian, this time you've drawn in an extraordinary figure. They're all our buddies. Su Qi looked at this scene, not surprised. From the information known, Doomsday is the place where everything from the past is buried, including things like the ancient paradise, the main god space, and even the Terminator can be referred to as Doomsday. And besides these, Su Qi still knows of two Doomsday. One is the master of the present world, the other being the evil god. But what exactly happened in that buried past history is still unknown. The birth of the 12 dimensions occurred after that. He's also seen the image of the world tree's birth with no leads. And the current ominousness, as well as that terrifying ominous universe. If you speculate from a different perspective, maybe they don't exist to destroy everything, to swallow every trace, but rather to cover certain past events or objects or people. Su Qi didn't know, and now there's no way to know. Everything has to wait. Wait for the evil god to strike down, or until everything concludes, or when the dust settles. Too much uncertainty, who knows what will happen. Anyway, if the evil god doesn't move, he won't move, using every strength to increase his own side's cards. And also needs to hide aura, hide fluctuations if noticed, as the master of the abyss, the evil god. Whatever, the doomsday in the abyss vortex is the real problem. However, it seems to have already begun. The evil god hovers at the center of the colossal abyss vortex. In the core of the abyss, the massive vortex resembles a bottomless black hole, devouring the surrounding light and vitality. The rotation of the vortex is akin to doomsday, like a frenzied howl. Within this abyss, countless shadows gradually emerge, accompanied by an irresistible aura of terror. These shadows are black and white, their forms transitioning from indistinct outlines to clarity, as if descending from the depths of the old days. This is the purpose of the abyss, through the black tide, to devour all traces and summon those doomsday beings back. Below, a man in a top hat observes the scene. What will you do next? The evil god has already acquired numerous traces, not only from the land of extreme evils devouring but from countless worlds slaughtered and polluted over eons, gathered from innumerable living beings. Gradually, a colossal body is being reshaped, within which a deep blackness like the endless night sky resides, as if each inch contains dangerous strength. The sheep head's shadow hangs high above the vortex, akin to a gigantic planet, overlooking this boundless domain. The ram horns are like ancient mountain ranges, curved and resilient, emanating suffocating pressure. Its one eye, no single eye, resembles a blood moon, flickering with aloof and terrifying light, gazing upon all the beings on the second battlefield, which appear insignificant before it. All the beings of the second battlefield, including those in the god's palace, also raise their heads, watching the evil god's body transformed into a vast expanse of the starry sky. Originally emboldened adventurers now tremble as if struck heavily. Indeed, the evil god's strength can penetrate sanctuary, affecting their spirit, mind, and soul. The air temperature seems to plummet abruptly. Fear's shadow surges in like a tide, making it impossible to breathe. Many divine sons, even God's sons, are now submerged in an indescribable fear. Qinsheng's hand trembles slightly, lips turning pale, seemingly stifled in his throat. Don't panic. Beside him, a hand presses on his shoulder. Startled, he looks back and sees Nan. Brother and you. Time is tight, and Nan has regained consciousness, a starfire chip hanging from him. No more explanation. The sect hierarch has arranged a mission. He hands over a cluster of starfire. Qinsheng somewhat dazedly receives it. What mission? I don't know either, only the name Starfire Blaze. And with the starfire in hand, you'll also have the ability to transmit the starfire. Qinsheng, do I look like an idiot? The evil god's terrifying power seems ready to easily pierce through all, as if to render their souls void. And yet here we are transmitting starfire? This thing has no energy, not even temperature, and yet we're transmitting? Suddenly, above the temple, a piercing scream erupts, akin to heaven and earth shattering, tearing at the nerves of all beings. That is the pollution sound. Quick, cover your ears. Countless people cover their ears in terror, faces pale, yet still, they can't stop the sound. As it passes through, each person feels their bodies being shredded apart, hands turning into tentacles, heads morphing into various bizarre shapes, weird things emerging from their bodies. What is this? Countless people look in despair at their body's transformation. Pollution sound is the evil god's wide-range spiritual domain, causing mental pollution, making people perceive their body's transformation as their spirit's sanity value falls. Remaining divine king solemnly pronounced. So, it's just an illusion. As many try to breathe a sigh of relief, the divine king solemnly announces, sadly, it's not. The evil god's pollution power can pollute everything, not just your spirit but your body and soul. When the spirit is utterly consumed, these will become real. The divine king's voice echoes through the second battlefield, countless adventurers stunned by this revelation. But there's no way to suppress this pollution. Even Sanctuary can't stop it. What do we do? Just one sound is all it takes to annihilate us. In this moment of despair, Su Qi, although seated at the upper round table, calmly takes out a broadcast machine. As the evil god's strength influences, the violent whirlpool of the abyss vortex intensifies, summoning those long-buried powers. What is even more terrifying is a phantom gradually revealing various horrifying details from the vortex. Filled with twisted and deformed tentacles, those tentacles grown with bizarre features, like ghosts in the darkness, sometimes extending from the abyss vortex, and sometimes retracting back. If Su Qi were here, he would definitely find it somewhat familiar because in that spiritual space he had already seen that gigantic existence on the blood moon. The indescribable fear is spreading throughout the extremely evil world with the sound of pollution. Run! Run! Someone screams in despair, their voice filled with endless fear of their body's change. All life forms almost instinctively retreat frantically, trying to escape this area shrouded by pollution. However, no matter how they struggle, the shadow of fear brought by the sound of pollution clings to them like an invisible hand, locking them in place. In the abyss vortex, the massive body of the evil god becomes increasingly clear, like a towering high peak, watching this space filled with panic coldly and majestically. The power emanating from its authority seems sufficient at this moment to annihilate countless lives. But the evil god does not continue. Its deep and terrifying eyes look at the second battlefield. Other demons may not sense it, but it couldn't hide from its eyes. That space is gathering some powers even it cannot comprehend. And most importantly, the point is not about that despicable person, but rather, the master of the present world is also involved. Having lost one eye, it wants to reclaim that strength. It also needs to consider this point. It and the master of the present world are both entities that emerged from the doomsday. Some things are only known by them. It doesn't underestimate the opponent, yet the key to unleashing the real power of the abyss is in its hands, the so-called abyss, is just an extension of the former doomsday. The vast, terrifying true power is being released. The master of the present world. That is also a true opponent. It does not believe that the opponent simply disappeared in the past. Even after countless years, the opponent wouldn't be unprepared. When the god's palace erupted, the opponent hadn't revealed any trace, which made it suspicious. Now, upon seeing the second battlefield, it has gradually calmed down. Yes, the master of the present world is the core of all operations. He arranged all of this, including its own eye. That damn despicable person was merely assisting his power. In this way, everything makes sense. Otherwise, how could a weak mortal possibly take one's own unique power away? This is also the reason it didn't step into the second battlefield at the first moment. The deep and terrifying figure of the evil god, carrying endless shadows, the power it currently radiates is merely a testing probe against the second battlefield. If these life forms don't want to perish, the master of the present world should take action. And at this moment, the evil god's bloodied eye rotates, stirring a change in the gravitational axis, explosively releasing all types of storms. Yet it keeps a close watch on that space in the battlefield. Because right at this moment, the power of the sound of pollution has been suppressed. This power, its only eye radiates infinite terror. It's not from the master of the present world. At this moment, the second battlefield, a massive amount of BGM plays from all directions. These strange sounds sweep across the entire second battlefield. What the heck is this noise? Wait, look, it's this source of light that is transmitting the sound. What's going on? When did something like this stick to me? Many people found themselves touched by a bit of starfire, and without any fluctuations, aura, or energy, they didn't even notice it. But now, the sound emitted with rhythmic BGM transformed them into mobile speakers. The sound is so loud that it spreads around, affecting creatures all around. Even the monsters by the abyss slightly lift their heads. Not only on numerous life forms but also on the ground. What is this all about? Looks like you can remove it. At this moment, someone calmly said, I'd advise against that. Haven't you noticed, although we don't know why, this BGM can suppress the mutation of our bodies, and the spiritual impact of the pollution seems to be blocked as well. In any case, this seems to be a good thing. Could this also be a gift of the origin? Just after killing the required amount, the origin descended a wisp, seemingly carrying some starfire. Not everyone has it, it seems. Indeed seems to be a good thing. Is this the added power of the origin? Everyone, let's fight. Countless life bodies begin to return to normal. Then, under the encouragement of this BGM, they unconsciously emit a stronger aura, brimming with combative spirit, exploding with even stronger strength than before. And on the disc, Xiao Meng is reporting to Su Buxian. Master, the stock of starfire has already covered all life forms in the second battlefield. Now the newly produced starfire, in the way of the origin's descent, is being distributed to areas with sparse distribution. Good, well done. However, Master, according to your requirements, the current output of starfire is still insufficient supply. Don't worry, Su Qi said softly. By the time I break through, it should be completely sufficient. The current approach is to spread starfire far and wide. Although the number of people gathered at the second battlefield is immense, reaching an incalculable scale, I can produce 1 million starfire in 1 second. Combined with my previous stock, building a starfire seed that can be propagated with starfire becomes quite simple. The structure of the starfire seed is more complex, but its functions are more plentiful. Just like now, you can transmit the sound of the BGM through each starfire seed. And this BGM naturally has its particularities. It was modified from the horror nursery rhyme broadcaster with many additions, and there is no need to counteract the pollution sounds of the evil god. It merely requires using some spiritual power to free the people from that influence. Of course, achieving this isn't easy, but for Su Qi, who has already mastered the evil god's right eye, it's a piece of cake. Next, the dimensional traces should have already mirrored those presences over. Whether they arrive now or later matters not. Apart from continuing to pour energy into searching for traces, There is only one thing left to do. Su Qi is contemplating a breakthrough. To be honest, it's not that he can't break through right now, but that he has used numerous rituals to restrain his breakthrough. The terrifying spiritual energy is extremely turbulent and violent, far exceeding Su Qi's current capacity. Su Qi doesn't know what stage he will reach, but one thing is certain. Once he breaks through, many things can be done more effortlessly. Like Starfire producing 1,000,000 in 1 second currently, but it takes 100 Starfire to form a single Starfire seed. Such a simple structure is already falling behind supply, not to mention more complex structures. There's also spiritual energy, variations of each sequence, etc., all worth trying. But now is not the time. Su Qi gazes into the deep space. He is holding a button, and at the moment he sees that none of his arrangements have been triggered, he cannot choose to break through directly. After all, a breakthrough requires time, and he needs to devote his whole heart and soul to it to go further. And that moment is when the energy surpasses another level. However, clearly, the abyss will not wait. Boom, boom, boom. Huge roars are sweeping through the second battlefield. Large black shadows begin devouring from all directions like a tide. At this moment, the entire deep space is almost occupied by the darkness surging from the abyss vortex. The second battlefield is like a piece of wood placed in ink. The ink is gradually seeping in without any edges, until the whole wood is utterly turned into a traceless black object. Yet countless combat forces are still unleashing everything against it, whether from the god's palace or various adventurers, and at this very moment, the abyss seems to have something new emerging, something that has been brewing for a long time. Boom, boom, boom. Beyond this pitch-black, endless deep space, the abyss's aura surges toward the second battlefield like an invisible tide, devouring all light and hope. The entire second battlefield is shrouded in dense black clouds, the dim sky suffused with suffocating fear, as though even the air is trembling slightly. Black shadows descend from all sides like bats, as if heralding the arrival of death. Boom, boom, boom. With the booming sounds, the evil forces hidden within the abyss begin. Countless twisted and ominous figures surge from the vortex, like monsters materialized by shadows, bearing sinister whispers, rushing towards the second battlefield. A terror beyond description, as if countless malices lurk within each shadow, ready to devour all life. What on earth is that? Something never seen before. Someone growls. The bell ringer's eyes widen, staring intently at the abyss. That is, carrying the attributes of the old days, capable of devouring others' traces, completely erasing anything. This power is termed Doomsday, though the true doom that devours all has not yet descended from within. But all the monsters emerging from the midst bear a portion of that aura. The second battlefield. Countless adventurers are meeting the imminent battle with such a posture, starkly contrasting against the darkness of the abyss on this chaos land. Spiritual energy flashes with thunderous roars. Numerous strength wielders intertwine on the battlefield. Countless attacks illuminate each other in this clash. Each collision is a grand explosion, the air filled with flames and ashes. Countless adventurers exert all their strengths in the tide of battle, letting out deafening roars of rage. Truthfully, the Origins dispersal has given them astonishing motivation, and the continuous sanctuary further boosted their morale. The Starfire just now, able to resist that most troublesome mental influence. There was even command. Some mysterious people suddenly appear in front of everyone, starting to give precise instructions, perfectly coordinating with other places. They seem like they come from the same place with a fully integrated information flow. The shadows of the abyss are not easily obstructed. They keep twisting during the battle, transforming into various horrific forms, able to dispel any attack. These shadows flow in combat, seeping into every inch like liquid, bringing unease and fear. Damn it! Those monsters carrying the aura from the vortex seem to devour something. I lost something, but can't specifically recall what. It's traces. Fighting with them results in being devoured of traces. At this moment, the darkness from the abyss grows more turbulent, like countless formidable tentacles reaching towards the second battlefield. attempting to devour all the light completely. In the next moment, those shadows continue to merge, transforming into enormous monsters, carrying endless terror, rushing towards the battlefield. Damn it, it's do or die against them. In this endless darkness and terror, the shouts of the adventurers resound like a storm. Although they seem to be in a dangerous situation right now, the fear is inexplicably suppressed by some force. At least now, everyone remains resolute in their fighting spirit, without chaos or retreat. The originally most fragmented, chaotic camp. At this moment, instead, they face the boundless abyss with united strength, weaving an impenetrable line of defense. And all of this is influenced by many factors: BGM, Sanctuary, the temptation of origin, and Su Qi also used his spiritual eyes, turning spiritual power against itself. Overall, very effective, but it won't last long. The adrenaline rush will eventually fade. But it's not important. The greatest beneficiary is still Su Qi. His energy progress is extremely frantic now, just 30% away from his goal. As the battle progresses, the scent of blood permeates the entire battlefield. The bodies of numerous monsters intertwined with blood. Instead, the defense line of the second battlefield holds firm. The darkness of shadows is gradually dispelled by brilliance, though the shadows behind remain unclear, still bottomless. But more adventurers seem to begin feeling that sliver of hope for victory, their shouts growing stronger, like the horns of battle. And at this time, the god's palace is almost done collecting the holy artifact fragments. Although there are still a few thousand pieces short, it is already the current limit. Boom! A great holy light shines on the battlefield, suppressing the shadows that invaded, reviving color in many swallowed places, restoring traces. The power of the master of the present world. The high ranks of the god's palace watch this scene with tears of joy. Within it indeed lies the power of the master of the present world. They undoubtedly recognize it. But the imagined scene of the master of the present world descending, holding up a sky, doesn't appear. After the brief brilliance, those colors that initially restored traces are consumed by shadows again. The figure composed of holy artifact fragments just stands there motionless. What's more important is rumbling. Everyone on the second battlefield hears the unbearable tremors. In the next moment, a large amount of blood scatters, two figures plummet from the deep space. At this moment, two figures are falling, countless people look up. The bellringer's pupils contract. That is, the light god and the life god. The enormous shadow is almost shattered. The scattered blood carries intense heat. Each drop that falls to the ground crashes like a meteor, creating a huge crater. They've been defeated. Countless faces reveal a grim heaviness. In this realm, the only two remaining gods have been defeated. Although it's just the strength of divine summon, it contains vast will, almost like a battle with the real self. And now they're defeated. At the same time, the appearances of the three abyss gods, their forms vaguely appearing in deep space, yet not approaching the second battlefield, the shadow shows signs of fragmentation, but clearly not fatal. The terrifying abyssal aura bursts forth without concealment. Damn it! The four abyss gods have gathered together. Two gods defeated. We have no corresponding strength to resist. Master of the present world. Many high-ranking officials cast their gaze at the shadow. Why is there still no aura? Didn't gather all the holy artifact fragments? Or is it for some other reason? Wait, where's Su Buxian? The bellringer's eyes narrow. He suddenly recalls that Su Buxian has the ability to activate the strength of the holy artifact, equivalent to being a key. Perhaps Su Buxian is the essential part. However, from the very start, Su Buxian's figure hasn't been seen. And at this very moment, boom, boom, boom. Whether it's due to the god's defeat, or because of the abyss vortex surging forth massive shadows, the main force of the abyss has spread from all directions. Terrifying numbers, in a way that cannot be counted, densely packed from sky dome to deep space horizons. Wherever the eye can see, they are appearing. There's no way out. Boom, boom, boom. The abyss intends to entirely obliterate this last place. Places outside the second battlefield have been swallowed by the massive black tide, providing eternal darkness, devoid of any color. All are black and white shadows. As the abyssal aura approaches more intensely, the breakthrough points in the second battlefield have been completely engulfed by the massive black tide, an overwhelming darkness that seems to plunder light and color together like an endless abyss, trapping the entire area in a bottomless black and white. Of course, the precondition for the defensive line being breached is that the people were forced back, and the sanctuary-like holy light recedes. As it recedes, the areas it needs to cover become smaller, ironically strengthening the sanctuary further. Yet all living beings who realize this still cannot remain calm. The black tide surges like ferocious waves, recklessly crashing upon this land, bringing an oppressive force that attacks, shadows roiling in the deep space, moving like torn giant black tentacles, seemingly aiming to devour all resisting existences. Only that ink-like intense black and cold white interweave, as if carrying the formless strength of old days distorting reality, leaving only desperate black and white. The abyss seems to have reforged those ancient strengths. Boom! The demons that fell into a cool-down now project strength again. Countless venerables emerge from the black tide. Even more importantly, the three gods commence their invasion, though they just fought with the light god and life god. But now they won't give them time to breathe, seeking complete eradication. And as three immense figures land at the edge of the second battlefield, the engulfed location, causing the second battlefield to continually tremble. Such a fragile world. Has it completely abandoned the edge? The blood demon god relies entirely on physical strength. Setting a foot down causes slight incline of the ground. Yet even so it causes the entire second battlefield to quake. I've already sensed that damned presence. The god of anxiety's deep voice rasps from the darkness, as if coming from hell, chilling to the bone. The chaotic god silently raises his head to look at the evil god still at the vortex. What is the Lord hesitant about? And why won't the Lord's other eye open after revival? As the three gods step to the edge, the surrounding air becomes heavy, countless adventurers seeming to use all their strength for each breath. Everything outside the sanctuary long since destroyed by the black tide's erosion. Various ruins, as if burned by fires, lean to the ground, turning to rubble various broken armors. Old blades hang powerlessly, seemingly lamenting. Under the influence of this dead silence of black and white shadows, only the whisper of the abyss echoes, like an endless sinister language, sending shivers down the spine. The deep, cold voice seems to mock the desperate lives, announcing the impending doomsday, as wave after wave of black tide approaches, consuming all hope with a relentless and terrifying stance. And in this dim world, the traveling merchant's figure stands out starkly. He quietly stands at the edge of the black tide, as if a splash of brightness in this disaster. His face retains a calm serenity, unperturbed by the surrounding gloom, emitting a profound aura instead. Even as the abyss's malice crashes like waves, the traveling merchant maintains his attire and gentlemanly smile. It's really overwhelming. I've been searching and trying to change, hoping that I've bet correctly this time. He murmured softly to himself, his voice seeming insignificant in this black and white world, as if in the impending catastrophe, it was of no consequence. His eyes flickered with a hint of calm light. In this ruthless abyss, can that guy really find a landing point for the future? Just at this moment, the black tide surged again, as if some hidden doomsday in the abyss had detected his presence here. The next moment, a vast tentacle swept over, and the earth was completely engulfed in an instant. The traveling merchant just smiled slightly and vanished along with it. It's unclear whether he escaped or was devoured. No matter what, at this moment the second battlefield was surrounded. The defense line was continually shrinking, and faster than before. After numerous demons and the Abyss God King appeared, the battle shifted to such a one-sided situation because the God's Palace was still entirely in cooling period, and the strength they relied on from the master of the present world hadn't erupted yet. In terms of advanced combat power, there was no aid across the entire line. It's over. unable to reflect the divine race's radiance, simply unable to resist. The bell ringer slumped onto the rubble behind him. Maybe I chose wrong from the very beginning. Guidance from the eye of destiny. Perhaps it wasn't like that at all. Right then, the bell ringer suddenly froze, turned his head. A point of starfire was shining beneath him. He suddenly paused, because it was not only beneath him, but also all around. Nearly every 10 meters there was a point of starfire shining. Previously, it wasn't obvious, as there was no aura or fluctuation. But now, for some unknown reason, these grains of starfire suddenly enlarged, lighting up, at this moment becoming densely packed. The densely packed starfire flickered in this dark world, like countless tiny stars vying to shine in the second battlefield. From the sky, every starfire seemed to carry its own spirit, independent yet intertwined, instantly decorating this desperate battlefield with dreamlike fantasy. The flickering starfire no longer feeble, instead growing brighter, showcasing fearless radiance amidst the black tide. At this moment, all life around paused their actions, eyes wide, staring at this breathtaking spectacle. What is this actually? When did these get on me? Starfire seeds scattered like dandelions by members of the leisurely people sect, and they would automatically sprinkle grains of starfire. And Xiao Meng went to finally adjust the positions. At the center of each starfire, it was as if invisible strengths were being gathered, illuminated through the starfire, reflecting in the eyes of countless people. No aura, no energy fluctuation. What exactly are these things? The bell ringer gazed into the distance, and, most importantly, in the shadows of the abyss devouring black tide, there were also traces of starfire shining. Why is this happening? At this very moment? Wow! Every grain of starfire suddenly gleamed. Holographic images appeared one by one. Holographic images reflected in the vision of each life, a kind of sacred and awe-inspiring aura emanating from the golden images. The next moment, the golden radiance gently shifted, revealing a line of words. Do you want to know the meaning of life? This sentence rang like dawn and dusk in the depths of every life soul, vibrating their mind, with each word seeming to hold different kinds of magic. At this moment, everyone appeared locked in the shock of this sentence, their hearts inexplicably filled with strange emotions. Of course, confronted with such strange holography and words, they were mostly puzzled, looking at each other, unsure of what to do. Only trembling uncontrollably, their hands involuntarily reached out, wanting to touch the mysterious and flickering starfire beneath. Yes or no? However, just as their hands approached, the radiance of starfire abruptly changed. The phrase reappeared in the image, but transformed into more complex and profound content. Do you want to dispel the fear in your heart? Lives felt a shock, as if sensing a strong image in the void, their minds stripped of surface fog, confronting their deep desires and fears. What is the meaning of life? Is it to struggle for survival or to continually explore for higher goals? Perhaps there will be an answer. These words surged in holography like a tide, clearly just self-talk-like discussion, yet making them feel an overdue strength amidst fear. In the densely packed starfire's glow, countless lives seemed to forget the abyss's invasion. Even the bell ringer couldn't resist the influence, but his eyes slightly contracted. This seems to have some spiritual power influencing. He's unsure if real, can only say the spiritual power of the other is terrifyingly formidable with highly advanced means. Being a demigod himself, he was influenced, let alone numerous ordinary adventurers. The adventurers only saw the glitter constantly flickering, seeming to guide them towards the deeper truths of life, as if sensing the universe's vastness in their hearts, prompting them to step into the unknown abyss. Numerous adventurers sensed an unusual connection, as if barriers between each were broken, with all pain and sadness reaching resonance at this moment. Now you have the chance to truly break the shackles of fate. New words emerged, causing all lives to feel suffocated, inevitably recalling past pains and struggles. Yet a deeper inner voice told them, all was to pursue that more glorious future. Meanwhile, the flickering of starfire gradually intensified, seemingly guiding them towards that unknown destiny. Each starfire became a connection with each other, converging into a strong resonance force, making every life feel a transcending self-existence. On the path of pursuing truth, there will inevitably be thorns and challenges, but will also welcome broader horizons. The image in starfire changed again. Words like gentle whispers, as if from higher dimensional wisdom. Lives felt a stirring in their hearts. Despite the uncertain road ahead, they were willing to stride onto this path. Now, do you want your destiny to be in your own hands? New words dropped like morning light, letting those originally sunk in despair find a renewed direction. Each starfire seemed to encourage them, urging them to step into the unknown abyss together. Then, at this moment, as the starfire brightened and flickered, more golden radiance emerged, even more dazzling than before, the inexplicable allure, drawing countless lives to this glow, their hearts' confusion and fear gradually transforming into endless expectation and hope. As if regardless of what challenges the future might bring, they remained fearless, all steadfastly looking at starfire. And in the next moment, no! Number 9998. Number 998. Number 98. Free distribution. Click the bottom left 30s super cool advertisement of the Leisurely People sect to receive rewards and complete the Nirvana of Destiny. The golden words bounced, holy radiance fell, presenting a scene extremely out of place. And the bell ringer, he didn't know about others. At least at this moment, seeing this message plunged into prolonged silence. No, to be precise, all high ranks of the God's Palace were the same, since their ranks were high enough, despite the influence of spiritual powers once reacted could resist. Now each was plunged into a stunned silence. Bell ringer. Leisurely People sect. You seem to have come into contact before. The bell ringer's throat seized, in such a despairing atmosphere. He seemed powerless, looking to the sky. Can I say I don't know them?